Chapter 1177. On this day, a middle-aged cultivator was riding a giant anaconda downstream of the Qingming River. He traveled upstream and arrived in front of the mist that covered most of the Qingming River. At this moment, a deafening roar suddenly came from the depths of the fog. It was like a huge pot of boiling water was surging and churning. The mist covering the surface of the river churned violently. Many of the low-level cultivators who had been cultivating within the mist for the past 2 years cried out in shock as they quickly flew out from the mist. Then, they saw that the mist covering the surface of the river for the past 2 days was rapidly shrinking. The middle-aged cultivator was slightly surprised, but then he smiled and said, "What a coincidence!" As the mist shrank, the middle-aged cultivator leisurely strolled in the direction of the mist. When the mist had shrunk to a size of 300 zhang, the middle-aged cultivator finally came to a halt. At that moment, the mist was roiling even more violently. The gulyalu sound was so loud that even the middle-aged cultivator could feel a wave of heat assaulting his face. The middle-aged cultivator was taken aback for a moment. Instantly, he realized that there was no real heat wave charging towards him. Rather, it was an illusion that his soul was experiencing. Or perhaps it was just a feeling. The heat wave was actually charging towards his soul in the first place. The Surging Heavens sword art is truly unique. The middle-aged cultivator nodded in praise. At this moment, the mist finally shrunk completely, disappearing into the body of a young cultivator. Beneath his feet, a huge black tortoise floated silently above the azure nether river, and behind him stood 3 youths around the age of 15 or 16. This young cultivator was naturally Lu Ping, and the one standing behind him was naturally Samling. The middle-aged cultivator smiled at Lu Ping, then looked at the Samling behind Lu Ping with a satisfied expression. He then looked at the giant Xian tortoise beneath Lu Ping's feet and said in surprise, "The tyrannical tortoise bloodline. Your Excellency is truly becoming more and more astonishing." Lu Ping seemed to have already sensed the arrival of the middle-aged cultivator. He only smiled slightly and said, "Your Excellency, did you come from the East Sea for the Samling?" The middle-aged cultivator was surprised that Lu Ping could see through him at a glance. One must know that the middle-aged cultivator's cultivation was far above Lu Ping's. He was confident that even the Samling behind Lu Ping would not be able to discover that he was from the same clan. However, he was seen through by Lu Ping at a glance. This caused the middle-aged cultivator to put away his contempt. His expression became much more solemn. He laughed and said, "I am Chu Yintian from the Green Sea Snake Wind Snake Clan. Greetings, Lu Daoyu." Lu Ping naturally did not dare to slight him. He also bowed and said, "Lu Tianping from the North Sea greets you, Senior. May I know if you have come specially for the Samling?" Chu Yintian smiled and said, "Lu Xiaoyu has made such a big movement in the Central Plains. Even the green sea snakes in the East Sea have heard the news. Tsunami and Hailan naturally did not dare to hide the fact that you have the green sea snakes following you. Hence, I came to the Central Plains." Lu Ping nodded. He had a sudden inspiration on the Qingming River. In order to seize this fleeting opportunity, he had to go into seclusion on the spot by the Foglock River. In order not to be disturbed during his seclusion, he had to summon Samling to protect him. At that time, he already knew that the identity of Samling could not be maintained. Hence, he was already prepared for the arrival of the green sea snakes. As for the green sea snakes, they had always been a race that valued their own clansmen. The sudden news from the Central Plains that a great medic of the green sea snakes was on the Qingming River in seclusion on the spot by the Foglock River. This naturally caused the green sea snakes to be extremely surprised and attach great importance to it. Since when did a cultivator from their clan go to the Middle Earth? Who would be so reckless as to enter seclusion on the Azure Nether River with 3 juniors? Furthermore, from the information they received, these 3 juniors were actually a wind serpent, a water serpent, and an ice serpent. Impressively, they were the 3 most powerful tribes of the Emerald Sea Spirit Snake clan. This time, Chu Yintian came to the Central Plains to investigate this matter. If there was really a cultivator from the green sea snakes who was cultivating outside, Chu Yintian naturally had to lend a helping hand. He would protect the cultivator and protect the three younger disciples at the same time. If someone was impersonating the cultivator, or someone had kidnapped the younger disciples of the green sea snakes, then Chu Yuntian's mission would naturally become a thunderbolt. Unexpectedly, on the eve of Chu Yuntian's departure, the outstanding disciples of the third generation, Chu Haitian's cousin, and Chu Hailan, the surprising disciple from the Fire Snake clan, came together to report Lu Ping's matter to the elders of the Green Sea Snakes. At the same time, they also insisted that Lu Ping did not seal Samling's divine sense and identity as Samling's follower. They also insisted on the deep relationship between Samling and Lu Ping. With the explanation of Chu Haitian and the other two, the identity of Samling's direct descendant was no longer in doubt. At the same time, the Green Sea Snakes gradually divided into two groups. One group naturally wanted to bring Samling back to the clan. How could the bloodline of the Green Sea Snakes wander outside? As for Lu Tianping, although they would not kill him, they would still punish him slightly. The other group of cultivators was also a little hesitant because Chu Haitian and the others insisted on the identity of Samling's follower. This was because the Green Sea Snakes allowed their clansmen to become the followers of powerful cultivators. The Emerald Sea Spirit Snake clan had never been a clan that was complacent. They knew the principle of learning from others. Although they had the best bloodline inheritance in the world, they also hoped that their clansmen could learn more from outsiders to promote their own clan's progress. Otherwise, the Emerald Sea Spirit Snake clan would not have chased the arrogant primordial giant crocodile from the East Sea to the desolate North Sea cultivation world. He was just a practitioner from a medium-sized sect in the North Sea cultivation world. No matter how one looked at it, Lu Tianping could not be associated with the great divines. Even though Chu Haishao and the others had repeatedly praised Lu Tianping for his prowess, he was at most a minor mid-dharma adept like Chu Haishao. At best, he could only be considered a great divines in the future, but he was far from qualified now. Just as the two groups were in a stalemate, three great cultivator elders of the Green Sea Snakes stood up and said that they might as well wait and see. He had to wait and see what level Lu Tianping could reach in the future. After all, Chu Haishao had already passed on part of the secret techniques of the Emerald Sea Spirit Snake to the three spirits. This way, before the three spirits reached the mid-dharma stage, their growth would not be delayed. Taking a look, they might as well send out an elder to evaluate him, to see if his strength and character could reach a high enough level in the future. After all, Samling and Lu Tianping were like father and son. If they really brought Samling back by force, it might backfire. These three great cultivator elders were none other than the first-generation elder Chu Fuyu, Chu Tianya, and the second-generation elder Chu Tianyu, who had received help from Lu Ping during the Battle of the Illusionary Five Islands. These three were the ones who had the most authority in the Green Sea Snakes. Their suggestion was finally agreed by everyone, and they unanimously sent Chu Yuntian all the way to the Qingming River. Chu Yuntian saw that Samling was looking at him and smiled. After all, you all have the bloodline of the Green Sea Snakes. Your race will eventually return. How about it? Are you willing to return to the East Sea with the old man? Samling did not hesitate at all, and shook his head in rejection. Chu Yuntian did not say anything else. Instead, he smiled at Lu Ping. However, when Lu Ping saw Chu Yuntian's smile, his expression immediately changed. He flung his body backward and opened the space door of the Golden House, keeping Samling inside. Then, instead of retreating, he moved forward and stretched out his hand to push backward. Whoosh! No one knew when Lu Ping had grown a tail behind him. The curled tail was obviously aimed at the back of Samling. However, Lu Ping had noticed it in advance, and kept Samling first. Since he could not persuade Lu Ping, he was going to rob him by force. Lu Ping moved forward and blocked Chu Yuntian's sneak attack. However, it did not seem to be beyond Chu Yuntian's expectations. Instead, he fell into a trap that Chu Yuntian had already set up. In reality, when a great adept suddenly used a sneak attack to attack Lu Ping already knew that what would follow would be a series of attacks like a storm. His opponent would not give Lu Ping any time to breathe. Chu Yuntian was treating Lu Ping as an equal opponent. He was not treating Lu Ping like a great adept would treat a junior at the mid-Dharma stage. Chu Yuntian opened his mouth and spat out a black cloud. However, it turned into a billowing black wind that rushed towards Lu Ping, who had no choice but to pounce on him. The black wind was like a bone-grinding blade, while the black cloud was like a bone-corroding poison. The two combined and rolled, trapping Lu Ping, who could not dodge in time. A look of disappointment flashed across Chu Yuntian's face. Although his opponent was only a great adept at the mid-Dharma stage, even if the green sea snakes did not value Lu Ping's abilities, he had not yet become a great medic. If Lu Ping's abilities were not unique among his peers, how would the green sea snakes dare to entrust their own junior to him? Chu Yuntian was very clear that although he was a great adept at the late Dharma stage, Chu Haitian was also a great Dharma adept. However, Chu Haitian was able to easily break through Chu Yuntian's technique. Although Chu Haitian had repeatedly claimed that Lu Tianping's abilities were not below his, Chu Yuntian still had some doubts. Lu Tianping had come from a poor place like China, so it was fine if he was a little more outstanding. However, how could he be compared to the first of the 3 generations of the green sea snakes? Chu Haitian seemed to be a person who valued friendship and friendship. Chu Yuntian was most likely exaggerating on Lu Tianping's behalf. However, this remarkable power did not require Lu Tianping to completely break through like nephew tsunami. As long as Lu Tianping could withstand the power of the remarkable power, he would pass. Chu Yuntian thought to himself. However, before this thought flashed through Chu Yuntian's mind, a flying sword suddenly appeared in the space between Black Wind and Chu Yuntian. It was a blue flying sword. Because of the black wind swirling clouds in front of him, Chu Yuntian did not need to use any defensive treasures. If he wanted to pose a threat to Chu Yuntian, he would first have to break through or withstand the remarkable power in front of him. Chapter 1178. The protective magic of a great cultivator was naturally not so easily pierced. However, the water nether sword was no longer the flying sword that relied purely on stealth to assassinate its opponent. Having survived the first thunder tribulation, even in a head-on battle, it was not something that Chu Yuntian's hurried protective gang chi could block. Chu Yuntian's eyes were wide open as he stared at the nether water sword that was less than a foot away from his chest. He suddenly opened his mouth and shouted. A long spear with a forked tip shot out and struck the tip of the nether water sword before it could pierce his chest. The forked snake spear was naturally formed from the snake tongue of Chu Yuntian's main body. Although the nether water sword had struck its target, the expression on Chu Yuntian's face was contorted. It was obvious that he was enduring immense pain. However, before the nether water sword could be sent flying, an arm suddenly stretched out from the place covered by the black clouds. It firmly grasped the nether water sword, and then casually chopped down. A sword light drew down a bolt of lightning in the air, killing with lightning speed. At this moment, Chu Yuntian was still unprepared because of Lu Ping's sneak attack. Thunderclap sword technique, divine water lightning. Chu Yuntian let out a strange cry. He naturally knew that Chu Tianya had once passed the inheritance of the thunderclap sword art to Lu Ping, but he did not expect Lu Ping to have already mastered its innate great ability so quickly. Moreover, under the cover of the divine sunflower water lightning, its power had more than doubled. In the end, Chu Yuntian was not an ordinary great cultivator. Just as the lightning sword was about to strike him, he forcibly tore open a spatial door behind him. His entire body shrunk backwards, and he immediately disappeared into it. However, as the lightning descended, it became like mercury pouring down from every pore. Before Chu Yuntian's spatial door had completely closed, the lightning had already penetrated through the crack that was left behind. Seeping water sword technique. Lu Ping was already proficient in switching between great abilities. The moment he used the thunderclap sword technique, he had already hidden a variety of changes, waiting for his opponent to change before launching another thunderous attack. Dozens of feet away, a spatial door exploded, and Chu Yuntian fell out of it in a rather sorry state. If not for Chu Yuntian's deep attainments in spatial doors, he would most likely have suffered a loss at Lu Ping's hands. Chu Yuntian looked warily at the blue flying sword hovering in Lu Ping's hand, waiting for an opportunity. He thought to himself, what a wonderful swordsmanship ability, and what a profound attainment in swordsmanship. Just based on that previous strike, this boy's strength cannot possibly be suppressed by the tsunami. However, what was even more surprising was that under the attack of the black wind and black mist, Lu Ping actually broke out of it unscathed. One must know that the black mist was a vital poison that Chu Yintian had nurtured in his body for more than 1,000 years. It was a first-class poison in the cultivation world, and the black wind was called the bone-crushing wind. It specialized in damaging the flesh and bones of cultivators, and was the most difficult to defend against. Such two abilities were easily blocked by Lu Ping. Chu Yintian felt that he had a very good understanding of Lu Ping's strength. He thought to himself that if this person did not die prematurely, it would be quite something to look forward to. In order to understand Lu Ping's strength, Chu Yintian had taken him by surprise at the beginning. Now that he thought that he had a good understanding of Lu Ping's strength, he wanted to stop and say a few words of encouragement to Lu Ping. Unexpectedly, Lu Ping had almost suffered a great loss. In particular, that black wind had almost pierced through Lu Ping's protective magic power, scraping off a layer of his skin and flesh, and had even pierced into his bones. It was obviously a kind of vicious magic power that specialized in damaging the flesh of cultivators. At this time, how could Lu Ping let go? How could he stop just because Chu Yintian had the intention of stopping? He was just a late Dharma adept. So what if he was a green sea snake? The netherworld aqua sword flashed away. Chu Yintian was about to speak, but a smile of praise immediately appeared on his face. However, before he could change his words and explain anything, Lu Ping's twin flying swords had already crisscrossed and slashed towards Chu Yintian. Previously, when he had killed Nanyu Laozu in the South China Sea, it had mostly been because of the sword of the real spirit, Emoli, which had only given Lu Ping the confidence that he had the strength to fight against a great adept. However, when he had ambushed and killed Sweat Laozu in the forest, it had given Lu Ping a sufficient understanding of his own cultivation level and strength. He was just a great Dharma adept, and Lu Ping really did not need to worry too much about him. Although this time it was Lu Ping who had taken the initiative to attack, Chu Yintian had already regained his composure and was not as flustered as before. Moreover, he was a great adept after all, and as an elder of the Green Sea Snakes, his strength was not weaker than Hanya Laozu's. Consecutive flying whirlwind technique, seeping water technique, drowning water technique, boiling water technique. The four major natural remarkable powers were displayed one after another in the twin flying swords. Lu Ping had obviously used Chu Yintian as a touchstone to practice his own natural remarkable swordsmanship. This lad's natural remarkable swordsmanship was actually so brilliant. Even he himself could not hear the sound of his own words. This was not just the sound of his voice being suppressed. How could a great late Dharma adept not even be able to speak? Was this a divine will attack? Chu Yintian was stunned. Only then did he feel that the sound of boiling water seemed to be getting louder and louder in his ears. However, his mind was getting hotter and hotter, as if it was a pot of water that was being heated. Then, he felt as if he was trapped in a sky full of boiling water, like a fish that was about to be cooked. The thin water-flowing sword formed a vast ocean in midair. Every bubble that emerged from the ocean would turn into a large bubble that was condensed by the sword chi. When it exploded, it was like a burst of thousands of swords, catching people off guard. This was because no one could predict where the bubbles would come from under the water. Lu Ping saw that the boiling sky sword technique did not disappoint him. When the huge field of sword light was formed, it was like a pot of boiling water. Chu Yintian was caught off guard and fell into it. Although it did not cause him any harm, he was at a loss for a moment. His divine will condensed. After all, Chu Yintian was a great adept. After the initial panic, he immediately realized that the heat in his divine will was actually just an illusion. After he condensed his huge divine will, he suddenly shouted, "Break!" The snake spear suddenly turned into 81 thin snakes in midair, stirring up huge waves in the sword field formed by the dual flying swords. At the same time, his divine will suddenly turned into a strong gust of wind, sweeping the illusion in his mind into pieces. The supreme boiling sky sword technique was actually broken by Chu Yuntian in an instant. However, what Chu Yuntian did not notice was that just as the illusion in his mind was broken, a jade-green flame had already taken a step ahead of the illusion in a flash, disappearing from Lu Ping's divine will. And the sword field formed by the dual flying swords was actually broken. This time, Lu Ping did not continue to attack. Ha 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 ha. There was a flash of fear in Chu Yuntian's heart, but he still put on an expression that said, "You're very good." Everything was already under the old man's control. He said, "Lu Xiaoyou's swordsmanship is really sharp. The old man's attack just now was too rash. However, I have an important task in the clan, so I have to have a better understanding of Lu Xiaoyou's strength. If you can't overcome the old man, the three little guys can only follow the old man back to Donghai. But now it seems that Lu Xiaoyou's strength is quite convincing." Lu Ping was delighted and said, "So senior, you agree to let Samling return to Donghai to accept the bloodline inheritance of the Green Sea Snakes?" However, Chu Yuntian shook his head and said, "The three little guys are naturally not a problem. The problem is Lu Xiaoyu." Chapter 1179. The battle between Lu Ping and Nanyu Laozu was a fight to the death, and the battle with Hanya Laozu was a hasty one. Only the battle with Chu Yuntian could be considered a battle that Lu Ping had long prepared for. In the battle with Nanyu Laozu, Lu Ping had relied on the sword of the real spirit, Mo Li. In the battle with Hanya Laozu, Lu Ping had completely established the confidence to fight against late Dharma adepts. Therefore, in this battle with Chu Yuntian, Lu Ping could be considered to be at ease from start to finish. Chu Yuntian smiled and said, "Please let the three little ones out, Lu Xiaoyu. The old man has some gifts for them." The Green Sea Snakes had always loved each other, and this was especially true for the younger generation. Previously, Chu Haitian and Chu Hailan had both given gifts when they met Samling. This time Chu Yuntian was no exception. Lu Ping was naturally happy to let Samling benefit, so he opened the space portal. However, when Samling appeared, he looked at Chu Yuntian with an expression of hostility. Chu Yuntian laughed bitterly, and Lu Ping explained the situation to Samling. Only then did the expression on Samling's face lighten up. Although Samling looked like he was only 15 or 16 years old, he still had some of the nature of a child. Seeing that Chu Yuntian was originally an elder of the tribe, he already felt a sense of closeness in his heart. If not for the fact that he had suddenly become an enemy of Lu Ping, Samling would not have been so hostile towards Chu Yuntian. However, after Chu Yuntian explained the situation, and seeing the gifts that Chu Yuntian had given them, Samling thanked him and hid in a corner, giggling and comparing the gifts. Seeing Samling like this, Chu Yuntian also smiled and said to Lu Ping, "Lu Xiaoyu has put in a lot of effort for these three children. All three of them have condensed a 9th-grade golden core. Even among the third-generation disciples of the tribe, their status is equivalent to the status of direct descendants like Tsunami and Haitu. Now among the 4th-generation disciples of the tribe, there is not a single one who has reached the peak of the core forging stage." Seeing that Lu Ping was smiling without saying anything, Chu Yuntian thought for a moment, then said, "I will not hide this from you, little friend. If Samling returns to the tribe in the future, I am afraid that you will have to be prepared for a more severe test." Lu Ping frowned and said, "What do you mean?" Chu Yuntian said with a smile, "The three children are too outstanding. Do you think the stubborn elders of our tribe will agree to let such outstanding children be their followers?" Lu Ping was silent, his expression uncertain. No one knew what he was thinking. Chu Yuntian chuckled and said, "That is all the old man has said. Lu Xiaoyu, you are on your own. In short, even if our tribe has the power to hinder you, little friend, the Green Sea Snakes have their own rules. As long as you follow the rules, no one can say anything." As he spoke, he had disappeared. Lu Ping was not surprised at all. Therefore, Lu Ping could clearly sense that Chu Yuntian had just used an extremely brilliant water-escaping technique. If it was any other cultivator, perhaps they would feel bewildered by Chu Yuntian's miraculous way of disappearing. If they were more suspicious, they might even think that Chu Yuntian was hiding at the side, waiting for an opportunity to launch a sneak attack. Chu Yuntian had been forced into a slightly embarrassing situation by Lu Ping before. Chu Yuntian had used the secret technique this time to save some face. However, if he knew that Lu Ping had seen through him with just a glance, he would probably be even more depressed for a long time. Lu Ping's divine sense swept out, and all the cultivators hiding within a radius of dozens of miles retreated in shock. The battle between Lu Ping and Chu Yuntian just now had attracted the attention of many cultivators. At this time, those who knew Lu Tianping of the North Sea naturally knew that this person was a cultivator in the cultivation world, who was not weaker than the heir of a holy land. Naturally, they did not dare to provoke him again. Even if there were those who did not know Lu Tianping of the North Sea, when they saw that Lu Ping was actually able to fight against a peak cultivator, they naturally did not dare to cause trouble. Seeing Lu Ping's divine sense sweeping out, everyone naturally avoided him. Lu Ping, who had mastered the third supreme divine sense, was naturally in a good mood. He did not care about those cultivators who were still far behind him, trying to find out his whereabouts. With a slight stomp of his feet, Lu Dagui's huge body shook slightly. Once again, he split the turbulent Qingming River and swam upstream. Lu Ping's original purpose for this trip was to perfect the east-flowing river sword skill. He wanted to create a peerless sword skill to be passed down to the future generations. But who would have thought that before he could master the east-flowing river sword skill, he would first create a peerless sword skill called sky-boiling sword skill. However, before he could comprehend the sword technique, Lu Ping had to continue his journey in the Qingming River. However, this time, Lu Ping did not hide the existence of the samling. In the water around the black tortoise, the samling happily played with each other. As the spirits of the water, wherever the black tortoise passed, the Qingming River would be stirred up by them. However, with Lu Ping's suppression, there was no need to worry about the danger of the flood breaking the dam. The Qingming River was the largest river in the central region. Naturally, there were demons in the water. However, after noticing the previous battle and the aura of the top-level bloodline of the green sea snakes, most of the demons in the Qingming River chose to stay dormant and let the samling stir up the wind and rain on the river. After Chu Yuntian's previous test, the green sea snakes temporarily admitted that Lu Ping had the qualification of samling as an inheritor. However, Lu Ping also knew that after Chu Yuntian came to test him and brought back the news of samling's current cultivation, especially the news that samling had condensed a level 9 gold core, Lu Ping would inevitably encounter more difficulties in the green sea snakes in the future. Whether the green sea snakes approved of their clansmen becoming followers of others or not, they would unite to resist Lu Ping and take the samling away from their clansmen under the principle of not breaking the rules of their clansmen. Even among the green sea snakes, how many disciples of the younger generation who had condensed a level 9 gold core could appear? And those who appeared were all cultivated with the power of their clansmen. How could they be willing to let go of them to become followers of others? Lu Ping and the others went along the river. After a long time, the surface of the Qingming River became smoother and wider. The river wind blew, and only the sound of the waves when the samling played could be heard. The river became more and more quiet. The samling seemed to notice something and seemed to be tired of playing. He shrunk his body and climbed onto the back of the black tortoise. Lu Ping stood at the front of the black tortoise's shell and looked at the river in front of him with bright eyes, as if he was enjoying the scenery of the river in the far distance. At this moment, Lu Ping suddenly sneered and said, "Is this interesting? When are you going to hide your head and show your tail?" Humph! A cold snort suddenly exploded in Lu Ping's ears. However, Lu Ping still looked calm and relaxed. However, the corner of his eye twitched slightly, so it was another great adept of the late Dharma stage. Only someone from a poor place like the North Sea, who has never seen the world, would act so ostentatiously on the Qingming River. Young lad, do you really think that the Central Plains practitioners are easy to deal with? An old voice came from the river. However, Lu Ping immediately turned his gaze to the void in the northeast direction and laughed. I was wondering who it was. So it's Masith Great Mali. I haven't seen you for more than 100 years, But Elder Ma looks rather hale and hearty. It looks like you've already passed the second thunder trial and have another 200 years to live. As soon as Lu Ping finished speaking, an old man stepped out from the void in the northeast direction where Lu Ping could see. It was the fourth elder of the Tenma people, Ma Li, who had chased after Lu Ping and the others for thousands of miles in the west. At this moment, the fourth elder of the Tenma people seemed to have an unfathomable aura. It was obvious that he had already passed the second thunder trial and had become a great adept of the late Dharma stage. However, he did not look too good now. It was obvious that he had not expected Lu Ping to be able to see through his concealment with just one look. Following the appearance of Ma Sith Great, two more mid-Dharma adepts of the Tenma people appeared on the surface of the river a few hundred feet behind Lu Ping. It was obvious that they wanted to block off Lu Ping's escape route. Even though he was surrounded by a great adept and two adepts of the same level, Lu Ping did not panic at all. Instead, he smiled at Ma Sith Great and asked, "I wonder if fourth elder has come all the way from the west to come here. Do you have any advice for me?" Ma Sith Great's face was as dark as still water. He laughed coldly and said, "The death of the fourth young master of the Sacred Lake tribe is very suspicious. The old man has come under the orders of the tribe leader to ask Lu Daoyu to follow the old man back to the west to clear himself of suspicion." Lu Ping smiled and said, "Since fourth elder has come under the orders of the tribe leader, how can I not see the tribe leader's flag?" Every major force in the world of practitioners, like the Tenma people, had their own set of rules to govern the world. This was also the embodiment of the status of these major forces in the world of practitioners. The token that the Tenma people used to travel around the world was the celestial horse flag, which was a fine horse flapping its wings and flying on the flag. Since Ma Sith Great wanted to capture Lu Ping and bring him back to the west, he naturally had to show his reasoning in the world of practitioners. Otherwise, if he lost his moral foundation, he would break the rules of the cultivation world. This might be a big trouble for the Tenma people. Moreover, Lu Tianping's reputation in the North Sea could be considered as the sun in the sky among the third-generation cultivators. If the Tenma people did not want to cause any trouble, they had to either capture or kill someone like Lu Ping in one fell swoop, without leaving any evidence or future troubles, or they had to have solid evidence to uphold their moral principles. Otherwise, they would not easily make a move to avoid unnecessary trouble. It was true that the weak were prey to the strong in the world of practitioners. However, if the strength of the two parties was on par, they also had to pay attention to right and wrong. The formation of this rule could be considered as a merit that the five holy lands had strongly advocated in the Middle Mainland for tens of thousands of years. Ma Sith Great secretly clenched his teeth. Previously, when Lu Ping revealed their whereabouts with a shout, his previous plan could not be carried out. Chapter 1180. During this period of time, Lu Ping had stirred up quite a storm in Central Plains. First, he had taken advantage of a giant tortoise to float on the Qingming River, which had already attracted the attention of some people in the Central Plains training world. Then, he had caused quite a stir by sealing the Qingming River in fog. Finally, his battle with Chu Yuntian had shocked many Central Plains practitioners. The fourth elder of the Tenma people, who was in Shihuang, had naturally received the news as well. Originally, according to the fourth elder's wishes, he had wanted nothing more than to summon his troops and charge into Central Plains to kill the junior, who had humiliated him many years ago. Unfortunately, at this time, the leader of the Tenma people was planning something big. All the Tenma people were doing their best for this matter, and the fourth elder did not want to cause trouble at this critical juncture. However, this matter could not be carried out with great fanfare. If the fourth elder decided to carry it out in private, there would be no one to restrain him at this moment. Thus, the fourth elder summoned his two direct descendants and quietly entered the cultivation world of the Central Plains. Originally, the fourth elder was not even willing to call his two descendants. This way, it would be difficult to keep this matter a secret in the future. Moreover, the fourth elder was confident that with his current strength, it would not be difficult for him to deal with a practitioner who had just entered the mid-Dharma stage. However, as a precaution, especially after hearing that Lu Ping had withstood a few blows from the great practitioner, Chu Yintian, and seemed to have passed some kind of test set by this great practitioner, the fourth elder was much more cautious, and decided to bring 2 of his descendants who were at the mid-Dharma stage as his assistants. With a great Dharma adept and 2 mid-Dharma adepts working together, there should not be any more accidents, right? Let's work together and finish this quickly. Ma the Great made up his mind, and shouted at the 2 Tenma people. The life weapon in his hand, which had been refined from his own horn, was already thrusting towards Lu Ping's chest. After Ma the Great had entered the late Dharma stage, this life weapon, which had been refined from Ma the Great's horn, had finally passed its first trial. This allowed Ma the Great's power to increase by 30% when he used various spells. Just as the heavenly horned horse spur was about to hit Lu Ping's chest, Elder Ma Si had already landed on the river. He gently stepped on the surface of the river and landed on the ground. At the same time, the 2 mid-Dharma stage heavenly horse cultivators behind Lu Ping also used their mystic treasures and spells to support Elder Ma Si's pincer attack. At the same time, 2 whirlwinds appeared under their feet, and they landed on the river water. In Lu Ping's senses, the moment the 3 of them landed on the surface of the river, it was as if the entire Qingming River had been shaken. Then, he saw the waves surge, and the entire river began to shake violently. Life Great Spell, Galloping 10,000 Horses. Although this was only a life great spell of the Tenma people, there was something special about this great spell. It could be used as a formation to unleash the full power of the Galloping 10,000 Horses. All the adepts with the blood of the Tenma people could unleash the power of the Galloping 10,000 Horses, together with the formation. Furthermore, the more adepts there were of the Tenma people, the more compatible this great spell would be, and the more powerful it would be. There were even rumors that the power of this great spell was limitless. Even the most powerful great spell could only be destroyed when it encountered the Galloping 10,000 Horses of the Dharma stage, when it was unleashed by dozens of Tenma people. When a great adept and 2 adepts of the same level, as Lu Ping used the Galloping 10,000 Horses together, the power of the great spell multiplied. Even Lu Ping, who had always been calm and collected, could not help but gasp when he saw the Galloping 10,000 Horses, Dao soldier formation of the Tenma people, which could be said to be the foundation of the clan. It was rumored that the entire clan of the Tenma people could be included in the Galloping 10,000 Horses, Dao soldier formation. If this was true, even those who had achieved the divine spirit level would have to retreat in front of this Dao soldier formation. If this was on land, Lu Ping could only resist or escape. However, these 3 Tenma people were currently using the Galloping 10,000 Horses, Dao soldier formation on the surface of the Qingming River. With the help of the mighty river water, the power of the Galloping 10,000 Horses, Dao soldier, was originally not inferior to the power on land. However, they had forgotten that Lu Ping had cultivated water elemental spells. In the path of water, Lu Ping's ability could increase by 3 levels for no reason. On land, Lu Ping could not fight against the Galloping 10,000 Horses Dao soldier. However, on the water Lu Ping could take drastic measures. The moment the 3 Tenma people stepped on the river water, they suddenly felt the river water under their feet disappear. Lu Ping had already tried to empty the river water under their feet to weaken the power of the Galloping 10,000 Horses Dao soldier. Of course, this was just a trick. The Galloping 10,000 Horses Dao soldier would not be broken so easily unless Lu Ping could drain the Qingming River dry in one breath. Behind Lu Ping, huge waves rolled back and went against the flow. In front of him, the waves surged and rolled down. It was a pincer attack. He could not let the power of the 3 powers merge into one. Otherwise, once the Dao soldier formation was formed, not only would it completely trap Lu Ping, the power of the Dao soldier formation would also increase. At this moment, Lu Ping pushed the thin water-flowing sword's hilt with one hand, and the huge waves behind him surged into the sky. He had cast the great river-flowing east sword art. The 2 swords danced in the air, and with the help of the Qingming River's momentum, and Lu Ping's understanding of the Great River Flowing East sword art. He unleashed the full power of the Great River Flowing East sword art. He actually managed to suppress the two heavenly Pegasus cultivators behind him. However, the two Timma people behind him were only cooperating. The real threatening power was Ma the Great's galloping flood wave. After Lu Ping threw out the dual flying swords behind him, most of his attention was on Ma the Great. As Lu Ping suddenly raised his hands, the water of the Qingming River under his feet suddenly rose by 10 feet. Then Lu Ping straightened his hands and pushed them upstream. The huge waves of the Qingming River rose against the flow, and rose higher and higher. It was as if the Milky Way was flowing in reverse, crashing towards Ma the Great's attack. Innate great power art of blue waves. However, under the pincer attack, no matter how powerful Lu Ping's power was, it was still beyond his capabilities. Although the two Timma people's power was suppressed by Lu Ping, Ma the Great still managed to suppress Lu Ping's art of blue waves. The two Timma people behind him could retreat, but they still guarded Lu Ping's path of retreat. However, Lu Ping couldn't retreat at this moment. He could only take on Ma the Great's attack head-on. Amidst the loud bang, the two huge waves collided with each other. The water splashed in all directions like crystal pearls, creating many deep holes on the embankments on both sides of the river. The water of the Qingming River, which was flowing towards both sides of the river, due to the collision of the huge waves, managed to hide from the embankments and swept towards both sides of the river, drowning the flat fields within a radius of a few miles in one fell swoop. A pale color flashed across Lu Ping's face, but soon it returned to normal. On the other hand, Ma the Great's expression didn't look good either. Although Lu Ping suffered a loss from the pincer attack of the three Timma people, he still managed to successfully stop the Dao soldier formation of the three Timma people. Clang! The netherwater sword that was lurking around Lu Ping tried its best to block the horn that was flying towards him. However, at this moment, Lu Ping was in a state where he had used up all his strength, but had yet to recover. Although the netherwater sword had managed to block the horn, under the tremendous force, Lu Ping's body was directly knocked into the river, creating a huge ditch that was 10 feet deep and hundreds of feet long on the surface of the river. Taking advantage of the fact that the ditch was filled up by the water, Lu Ping's entire body was already in a sorry state. Don't hold back anymore, lest the night is fraught with trouble. Although the four of them had only exchanged blows for a moment, the commotion caused by it was definitely not small. The cultivation world of the Central Plains was filled with cultivators, and there were countless sections. There was no telling when someone would intervene. This was definitely the territory of the human race. So even though the Timma people were powerful, they might not be welcomed by others. However, just as Ma the Great finished speaking, he saw the corners of Lu Ping's mouth twitch slightly. Ma the Great was slightly startled, and then he heard a loud shout. Ayayaya! How shameless, 3 against 1. What our Yuan clan hates the most is bullying the few with numbers. Fellow Taoist who uses a sword, our old Yuan clan, just so happens to be itching to fight today, so I'll help you block the two behind you. You're pretty lucky. Remember to owe our old Yuan clan a favor. Ma the Great's expression changed drastically, as if he could already tell who the person was from the voice. He opened his mouth and shouted at the two juniors, "Be careful." Then, as if he wanted to say something, he saw that Lu Ping's two flying swords had already swept up an earth-shattering sword cry, completely suppressing Ma the Great's voice. After that, the entire Qingming River started to boil. Ma the Great suddenly felt as if he had fallen into a pot of boiling water, and every bubble that emerged from the river could explode into a bunch of sword sparks, as if he was going to be sliced into 1,000 pieces and made into a pot of horse meat soup. Ma the Great was greatly shocked, and could no longer care about the two juniors. He pulled out a horsetail whisk from the space behind him, and swept it in all directions, repelling all the sword sparks that were spreading towards him. When he raised his eyes, his expression instantly became even more unsightly. Just as Lu Ping made his move, an 8-feet-tall giant holding a 10-feet-long wrought copper rod jumped out from nowhere, and swung it down. However, 2 rod shadows flashed in midair, and they fell on the heads of 2 Timma people. blocking the two who were about to attack behind Lu Ping to support Ma the Great. Lu Ping laughed loudly and said, "Thank you for your help, Brother Yuan. How should I address you, Brother Yuan? When this matter is over, I'll treat you to a drink." The giant was unstoppable, and his wrought copper rod transformed into hundreds of rod shadows in mid-air, firmly encircling the two Tenma people cultivators, who were at the same level as him. Then, it suddenly charged upwards, and the single horn on its head grew larger and larger. The spiritual energy of heaven and earth in the sword domain all gathered towards the single horn, and then formed a huge single horn in midair. Amidst the loud bang, Lu Ping felt the thin water unstoppable sword tremble violently. It was almost out of Lu Ping's control. Then, Lu Ping flew back, and saw the sword domain formed by the dual flying swords in front of him suddenly break. Ma the Great followed behind a huge Pegasus idol, and broke out of the encirclement. Once again, it was the Pegasus clan's heirloom's great skill, the sky-piercing. But after Elder Ma Si summoned his Pegasus avatar, and combined it with the single-horned spiritual treasure, the power of the skill was like a tiger that had grown wings. It actually broke through Lu Ping's peerless sword skill. However, just as Ma the Great broke out of the encirclement, there was suddenly a slight airflow in the air. Immediately, the fourth elder, who had just released his divine will from his body, changed his expression. This was because Lu Ping's supreme divine sword technique was a kind of secret magical power that coexisted with swordsmanship and divine will. Under the attack of Lu Ping's powerful divine will, even the fourth elder, who was at the late Dharma stage, had no choice but to retract his divine will. It was only under the protection of the Pegasus idol that he was able to escape the tracking of his divine will. It was precisely because of this that before he broke through Lu Ping's sword domain, Ma the Great did not dare to release his divine will. And in the moment that he broke out of the encirclement, he did not notice that Lu Ping had already hidden the Water Seer formless sword. By the time the fourth elder released his divine will, and sensed the strange fluctuations in the air around him, it was already too late. The Water Seer sword was already 3 feet in front of him, heading straight for his face. In his desperation, the fourth elder only had time to summon his protective magical power. At the same time, black hair suddenly grew from the back of his neck and stretched forward to entangle the Water Seer sword. However, although the shapeless sword technique was mainly used for sneak attacks, it was still a powerful magical sword technique after all. How could it not be used to fight head-on? The moment the Water Seer sword appeared, 5 sword shadows flashed out in a row. The long black hair that was entangling the Water Seer sword was instantly twisted into a mess. Then, the Water Seer sword pierced through 9 layers of protective Gang Qi and broke through the fourth elder's protective magical power. It was a pity that the Water Seer sword was already at the end of its flight after breaking through the fourth elder's Pegasus idol and his protective magical power. It only managed to blind Ma the Great's left eye before it could advance any further. The Pegasus single horn smashed down and knocked the Water Seer sword away. With only one eye left, Ma the Great glared fiercely at Lu Ping, but did not dare to fight him again. Instead, he suddenly turned and flew towards the west. At the same time, the Pegasus single horn suddenly shot out. With a series of clangs, the spiritual ape's rod net that was blocking the 2 mid-Dharma adepts of the Tenma people was suddenly broken. 2 figures flew out from the gap and followed closely behind Ma the Great as they flew towards the west. "Hey, our old Yuan hasn't had his fun yet. Why are you running away?" Suddenly having his magical power broken by Ma the Great and letting his 2 opponents escape, the spiritual ape Yuan Long was greatly disappointed. He could not help but shout, "Coward, if you have the guts, then let's see who's the winner before you leave." Immediately after, the spiritual ape suddenly changed his target and said to Lu Ping, "I say, why did you let that old horse go? You didn't even give old Yuan a chance to fight." Lu Ping did not know whether to laugh or cry. He spread his hands and said, "After all, he is a grand adept. If he has made up his mind to leave, how can I stop him?" A grand adept had been defeated in a fair and square battle with Lu Ping. Even one of his eyes was blinded. This was a legendary moment in the entire world of cultivation. Now this spiritual ape was actually complaining that Lu Ping had interrupted his fun. However, Lu Ping immediately understood this fellow's purpose. The spiritual ape rolled his eyes, and a silly smile flashed across his rough face. He said, "Hee hee, our old Yuan helped you by stopping those 2 horses. Now that you've interrupted our fun, it's time for you to return the favor. Come, let's have a fight first." After saying that, Yuan Long stretched out his hand and summoned his 1,000-pound rod. He got into a stance and was about to attack. Lu Ping quickly waved his hand and said, Wait. We were first surrounded by 3 Timma people, and then we had a huge battle with a grand adept elder of the Timma people. How much strength do we have left now? Don't tell me that your old Yuan family takes advantage of others when they are down?" Yuan Long was instantly enraged. He patted his chest and said, "Nonsense. Just because of what you said, our old Yuan family will have a fight with you. However, our old Yuan family has always been fair. I'll give you a few days to recuperate. When you've recovered, we'll have a good fight again." Lu Ping knew that the spiritual ape family had always been stubborn. This battle would most likely be unavoidable. Thus, he could only say helplessly, "Fine. It's just that the battle here has definitely attracted the attention of many people. We can't stay here for long." Yuan Long chuckled strangely and said, "It just so happens that our old Yuan family is also tired. Let's rest on your black tortoise for a while. Our old Yuan family remembers that you once said that you would treat us to wine. However, let me say this first. If the wine isn't good, don't blame us for making fun of you." Chapter 1182. If the fact that Lu Ping had the green sea snake by his side, and that his battle with Chu Yuntian had caused the training community of Central Plains to acknowledge Lu Ping's strength and reputation, then his battle with the 4th elder of the Timma people, where he not only defeated him, but also blinded one of his eyes, had caused a huge uproar in the training community. Previously, other than the heirs of the Holy Lands who had fought with Lu Ping, the rest of the people still had doubts about the true strength of this North Sea practitioner. After all, when Lu Ping had fought with these heirs of the Holy Lands, most of the time, he had stopped at the right moment or even ended in a draw. As for these heirs who had fought with Lu Ping before, no matter how arrogant they were, their evaluation of Lu Ping's true strength was that he was not inferior to a certain family. Although this statement was vague, it was definitely not wrong. Many people could naturally sense that Lu Ping had more or less held back when he fought with them, but there was no reason for them to help Lu Ping. Moreover, these practitioners had their own thoughts. If one day, there was a practitioner whose strength was similar to theirs who became enemies with this Lu Tianping, wouldn't it be a happy thing if they were to suffer a huge loss at the hands of this fellow, because they had misjudged his strength? It was precisely because of this that it was difficult for the training community of Central Plains to determine the true strength of Lu Ping. After a long time, they naturally thought that Lu Ping was deliberately hiding his strength, and that his true strength might not be that high. Now that Qing Mingjiang and the 4th elder of the Tenma people had a fair and square victory, those who had previously doubted Lu Ping's strength were instantly silenced. It was not that there were no examples of a mid-Dharma adept challenging a late Dharma adept, and there were even many who could fight with a late Dharma adept and retreat unscathed. However, there had been no one who could win a battle since Xiao Baiyu, the sky-splitting sword saint from 300 to 400 years ago. Furthermore, the 4th elder of the Heavenly Pegasus clan was not someone ordinary people could compare to. He was a genuine great divine ability cultivator, a top expert in the cultivation world. Meanwhile, Lu Ping was still traveling upstream along the Azure Netherworld River. On the broad back of the black tortoise, Yuan Long wrinkled his nose and glanced at the black tortoise beneath his feet. Then he said to Lu Ping, "You have part of the tyrannical tortoise's bloodline. I heard that you have 3 little green sea snakes following you. If I didn't know that you're Lu Tianping of the Northern Sea, I'm afraid that ordinary people would think that you're a cultivator from the spirit-taming sect." After Lu Degui had merged with part of the tyrannical tortoise's bloodline, although his own potential had increased significantly, he still could not perfectly hide the aura of the tyrannical tortoise's bloodline within his body. Therefore, It was very easy for others to notice that he was hiding something. Lu Ping smiled and did not say anything. With a flip of his hand, Linglong's wine cauldron appeared in Lu Ping's hand. Then, it floated in midair and suddenly expanded. Linglong climbed out of the wine cauldron. Lu Ping first glanced at Yuan Long, then said to Lu Ping in a bad mood, "Why did you call Linglong out? Don't you know that Linglong is preparing for her second thunder trial? This is not a time to disturb her." Yuan Long's eyes widened the moment Linglong's wine cauldron appeared. When he saw Linglong emerge from the wine cauldron, his eyes shone brightly and his face darkened. Lu Ping did not pay much attention to Yuan Long's expression. Instead, he said to Linglong, "I know that you have improved very quickly. However, without me to help you summon the thunder trial, how will you become a second tribulation spirit treasure? If you want to pass the thunder trial, you will have a lot of time to prepare. When you are completely prepared, we can summon the thunder trial. However, we have guests now. First, take out a few of your treasured spirit wines. I will use them to entertain the guests." Linglong had been by Lu Ping's side all these years. It could be said that she had collected and brewed quite a lot of spirit wines. Normally, only Lu Ping would drink them to his heart's content. In addition, only his followers, such as Debao, could benefit from it. Naturally, the rest of his friends would only give him a limited amount of spirit wine. Therefore, Linglong had collected quite a lot. Is this the imitation spirit treasure of the treasured cauldron of heaven and earth? A surprised voice came from the spiritual ape beside Lu Ping. He could not help but ask. Lu Ping was stunned. Only then did he notice that Yuan Long's expression was a little strange. He could not help but nod and say, "Indeed, I once found Linglong in the Yingtian dojo. Since then, Linglong has been by my side." Back then, the North Sea cultivators had gathered in the Yingtian mountain range and secretly entered the Yingtian dojo. They had unearthed the inheritance of the Yingtian faction. More than 100 years had passed since then. Although the secret back then was not known by everyone in the cultivation world of the Central Plains, there was no longer a need to hide it. Therefore, Lu Ping had to admit that he was very carefree. Moreover, in the cultivation world of the North Sea, there had been many rumors about Jinling's rise over the years. Among them, there was a widely spread view among the major sections. That was when all the sects had gathered in the Yingtian dojo, the biggest secret had been obtained by Jinling alone. It was precisely because of this that Jinling soared to the sky, leaving the various sects in the North Sea far behind. Even Lu Ping's rise was believed by many to be due to him obtaining the inheritance of the Yingtian faction. Jinling naturally did not explain anything about this. When everyone had entered the Yingtian dojo together, even if Jinling had obtained all the benefits, it was still due to Jinling's own ability and luck. How could the other sects not have obtained the Linglong wine cauldron and the mountain splitting axe? How could they not have obtained the abundant void mirror, the medium-sized spirit stone vein, and the Dharma form soul? The Yingtian faction. Back then, it was said that the Yingtian faction had indeed created a replica of the treasure cauldron of heaven and earth. I didn't expect it to be this wine cauldron. Not bad, not bad, not bad at all. Yuan Long said it was not bad, but there was a hint of regret in his eyes. Lu Ping had seen it clearly from the side, but Yuan Long did not deliberately point it out. Lu Ping was not in a position to ask directly, so he only gestured for Linglong to take out a few fine wines from her collection. No matter what, if Yuan Long had not stepped in to fend off the two mid-Dharma adepts of the Tenma people at the last moment, it would have been difficult for Lu Ping and Ma Sith Great to even escape unscathed from this battle, let alone emerge victorious. As such, Lu Ping was more than willing to pay for this wine. Oh, the 100-flower dew. The brewing of this wine requires top-grade spirit flowers to be brewed using a secret technique. If the secret technique is used, but the spirit flowers are not old enough, the quality of the wine will be greatly reduced. Yuan Long's eyes lit up when he saw the first jar of wine that Lu Ping took out. However, it was obvious that he did not believe that Lu Ping would be able to gather 100 types of spirit flower dew of sufficient age. This 100-flower dew did not mean that he could just randomly find 100 types of spirit flowers. There were only a few hundred types of spirit flowers that could be used to brew this 100-flower dew, and each type of spirit flower was considered rare among spirit herbs. It was not easy to gather all of them. Of course, if one did not care about the age of the spirit flowers, it would be much easier. When Lu Ping heard Yuan Long's question, he did not refute it. He only opened the seal on the jar of wine, and the rich aroma of the spirit flower wine made Yuan Long salivate. However, this was just the beginning. In a short while, Lu Ping took out another 10 jars of spirit wine from the wine cauldron. Some were big, some were small, some were big, some were small. Every jar of spirit wine made Yuan Long's eyes light up. However, just 5 days later, Yuan Long, as usual, poured a small jar of spirit wine into the mouth of a core forging adept. Yuan Long grinned and said, "If an ordinary person were to drink so much fine wine in such a short period of time, they'd need at least 10 days to properly cultivate. However, our great ape clan's battle prowess increases the more fine wine we drink. Not only does that fine wine not weaken our strength in the slightest, it actually increases it greatly. So Brother Lu, feel free to make your move." Lu Ping didn't know about this, and he smiled. Just as he was about to say something, Yuan Long unexpectedly smashed his club towards his head. He said with a smile, "Brother Lu, you better be careful. Our great ape clan doesn't care about who moves first. Once we start fighting, I'm sure we'll try to seize the initiative." The club's power was so great that even Lu Ping didn't dare to take it head-on. However, Lu Ping didn't dodge. Under Yuan Long's astonished gaze, the Lu Ping before him was suddenly smashed into pieces, and then turned into a puddle of water that flowed down the black tortoise's shell. The art of crossing the sea and heaven was being executed right in front of the great ape clan's eyes, and this Yuan Long actually didn't notice it in the slightest. However, Lu Ping had already appeared in the air 300 feet away. His pair of flying swords drew a streak of light in the air, and directly aimed for Yuan Long's neck. He smiled and said, "It's impolite not to reciprocate. Brother Yuan, take this sword of mine." Chapter 1183. The great intelligent apes were famous for 2 hobbies in the cultivation world. The first was that they valued wine as much as their life. In the cultivation world, no matter what kind of fine wine there was, they would rarely fail to recognize it. There had even been incidents in the cultivation world where sects and clans were exterminated because of a fine wine that the great intelligent apes had never tasted or heard of before. Their ultimate goal was simply to obtain that fine wine, or to see that fine wine that they had never seen before. The second was that they were madly addicted to battle. The great intelligent apes respected but never feared the strong. Moreover, they loved to challenge the strong in the cultivation world. They never killed the innocent, but they would use all kinds of workable or unworkable reasons to start a fight or join a fight. Therefore, the number of the great intelligent apes might be slightly inferior to that of the green sea snake race and the 5 elements peacock race, but they never lacked in the number of strong cultivators. They even had a little more than the other top demon clans. However, if one believed that the great intelligent apes were crude and unintelligent, then all those who held this kind of thinking would definitely suffer a great loss at the hands of the great intelligent apes. The reason why the great intelligent apes were called wise was because of their intelligence. Do not be fooled by the appearance of the great intelligent apes. Even if they took human form, they were usually strong giants, just like Yuan Long, who was currently fighting against Lu Ping. They looked simple and honest, but if that was really the case, the great intelligent apes would have been destroyed countless times by the cultivation world that was full of deception. How could they become one of the top forces in the cultivation world? One of the few large demon clans that could rival the 6 holy lands of the human race. Just like now, the great intelligent apes had given Lu Ping 5 days to recuperate, but he had also taken the opportunity to drink all the spiritual wine that Lu Ping had collected. Although the spiritual wine could not be converted into an increase in Yuan Long's cultivation in a short period of time, he could use a secret technique to store pure spiritual qi that could be refined into vital essence at any time. In the long run, the pure spiritual qi was naturally the most suitable to be used to improve one's cultivation. However, in the short run, The pure spiritual qi could be used to quickly replenish the consumption of vital essence, and could also be used to prolong a cultivator's fighting time. Yuan Long knew very well that although he was looking forward to fighting against Lu Ping, after witnessing Lu Ping blinding one of the eyes of the great cultivator Tenma people, he clearly realized the gap between them. If they were to really fight, Yuan Long would most likely lose. However, the more this was so, the more the blood of the great ape flowing in his veins boiled, and the more he longed for this battle. The spiritual qi contained in the fine spiritual wine was the biggest bargaining chip to prolong his fight against Lu Ping of the time. Even if he wasn't a match for Lu Tianping, he still had to fight. The longer he persisted in the hands of an expert, the more he would be able to obtain. So, since Lu Tianping wanted to treat him to a drink, then he would think of a way to drink to his heart's content before the battle. Yuan Long succeeded, but in the end he still failed. The two of them battled above the Qingming River for 6 hours. During the last 2 hours, Yuan Long even realized that Lu Ping had gone easy on Lu Ping, so that Yuan Long could enjoy the battle to his heart's content. On the other hand, Yuan Long was so engrossed in the battle that he didn't notice Lu Ping's presence at all. 6 hours later, Yuan Long's limbs were tied up by Lu Ping's Qingming River water. Taking advantage of the moment when Yuan Long broke free, the invisible water sword touched Yuan Long's forehead, and the long sword disappeared again. Awesome, awesome! The great ape wise did not have the slightest regret after losing. Instead, he shouted in joy. For the great ape wise who loved to fight, a hearty battle was more important than winning or losing. This was also the reason why the great ape wise's great master, Pure Yang Laozu Yuan Pokong, liked to fight in groups. With the methods of this Yuan Pokong Laozu, it was very difficult to find an opponent in a one-on-one fight in the world of cultivation. Only in a group fight could he find some satisfaction. The two of them landed on the back of the black tortoise. The great ape wise scratched the back of his head, and a 1-foot-tall stone jar appeared in his hand. Yuan Long patted the stone jar with his fan-sized palm and said, "I, old Yuan, have drunk so much wine from you, brother Lu, and I feel very sorry. Fortunately, I still have a jar of the great ape wise's top treasure, monkey wine. I want to treat you to a drink." When Lu Ping heard it was monkey wine, his eyes immediately lit up. He asked curiously, "Is it really monkey wine? It's an incredible treasure in the world of cultivation." Yuan Long smiled complacently and said, "Isn't that so? Although our brilliant ape clan has monkey wine, the production is extremely limited. With our old Yuan status, it's already not easy to get a small jug every 10 years. Lu Ping looked at the 1-foot-tall stone jar in Yuan Long's hand and hesitated. 10 years for a small jar. How many years did it take for Yuan Long to save up such a big jar? Should I take it easy later? I don't want to drink all of his treasure. However, this monkey wine is a rare treasure in the world of cultivation that can strengthen the muscles and bones. It has an obvious effect on a cultivator's physical body. It would be a pity if I missed this golden opportunity." But, immediately after, Lu Ping felt that his previous hesitation had been thrown out the window. Yuan Long continued, "But this jar is different. It was stolen from our former general before we left the North Ice Fields. In the past, we might not have been willing to invite Brother Lu to drink with us. But this time, we can drink to our heart's content." "Haha, good. In that case, I have no choice but to accept. It just so happens that I'm also drooling over the world's famous monkey wine. The former general of the great ape wise. Wasn't that the pure Yang Laozu Yuan Pokong who loved to fight in groups? No wonder Yuan Long was able to find such a big jar of monkey wine. Since that was the case, Lu Ping naturally wouldn't stand on ceremony. That monkey wine was really a rare treasure." As soon as the cup of monkey wine entered his mouth, the sweet aroma of the wine contained a strong fiery nature. It was as if a mouthful of lava had flowed down his throat and suddenly burst into flames, burning his limbs and bones. Lu Ping could even clearly feel the heat of the flames on his body. "Good wine, this is really good wine." This feeling of comfort made Lu Ping exclaim in delight. He couldn't help but drink another cup of monkey wine. At this time, Yuan Long, who was watching from the side, felt as if his heart was being cut by a knife when he saw Lu Ping drinking cup after cup. However, the great ape wise had always been forthright, especially when they met a good friend with a similar temperament. Therefore, although the great ape wise felt his heart ache for the monkey wine, he was also happy to see Lu Ping drinking to his heart's content. However, other than the great ape wise, no one else would be able to understand this contradictory mentality. Every time Lu Ping drank a cup of monkey wine, the time between each cup was very long. This was so that he would have enough time to refine the medicinal spiritual qi in the wine. Fortunately, the two of them weren't drinking for the sake of drinking. From time to time, they would discuss the Tao and interact with each other. During this period of time, apart from the previous battle, the two of them could be considered to have benefited greatly. They drank this jar of monkey wine for 2 whole days, but they still only drank 2/3 of it. In the end, when Lu Ping saw that Yuan Long's face had turned green, he was secretly amused. However, even if Lu Ping drank the rest of the monkey wine, it wouldn't be of any help to the strengthening of his body in the short term. Only then did he say, "Ah, what a pity, what a pity. This monkey wine can be said to be the best wine in the world. It's a pity that I can't drink anymore." Naturally, Yuan Long refused. Although his heart ached for the wine, he valued this good friend in front of him more. Chapter 1184. The True Pupils of the Three Pure Ones was originally a magical technique passed down by ape Taoist. Even Junling was able to obtain the inheritance of the true pupils of the Jade Pure by chance. As the direct descendant of ape Taoist, it was not surprising that the great ape clan possessed all the inheritance of the true pupils of the Three Pure Ones. However, when Yuan Long confirmed that the bowl in Lu Ping's hand, that looked like fine sand, but was actually flowing in the jade bowl at all times, was really the 1,000 opportunity quicksand iron, Yuan Long's heart suddenly felt like it was being scratched by the claws of a mouse. He could not calm down for even a moment, and circled around the bowl of treasure in Lu Ping's hand. At this time, Yuan Long revealed the nature of the great ape clan. Lu Ping smiled and said, "It is indeed the 1,000 opportunity quicksand iron. I also obtained this item by chance, but it is not very useful to me. Since Brother Yuan needs it, I will give it to you." This bowl of 1,000 opportunity quicksand iron was a treasure Lu Ping obtained from Nanyu Laozu. Although it was a metal's spiritual material, it flowed everywhere like water. It was a rare treasure in the cultivation world, and was the favorite item of the great ape clan to forge their own natal spiritual treasure. Usually, the great ape clan's natal spiritual treasure only needed a little bit of 1,000 opportunity quicksand iron to enhance their own treasures. If the bowl of 1,000 opportunity quicksand iron that Lu Ping gave to Yuan Long was used sparingly in the past, it was enough to forge 3 to 5 spiritual treasure level treasures. Now, it was completely given to Yuan Long. Yuan Long was startled and hurriedly waved his hand and said, "No, no, this is a rare treasure in the world. It is something that can only be found by chance. I can't accept it." Lu Ping's face turned serious and said, "Brother Yuan, you and I hit it off at first sight. There is no reason to refuse a gift from a friend. Moreover, you have already treated me to the world's unparalleled monkey wine. Giving you this bowl of 1,000 opportunity quicksand iron is a courtesy to reciprocate. If you refuse, does it mean that you do not recognize me as a friend?" Yuan Long was stunned and said, "That is not the case. This 1,000 opportunity quicksand iron is... Hey, be careful." Before Yuan Long could finish his words, he saw the 1,000 opportunity quicksand iron in Lu Ping's palm flying towards him. Yuan Long hurriedly and carefully caught the jade bowl, fearing that the quicksand iron inside would spill out. Lu Ping said, "Brother Yuan, there is no need to say more. This 1,000 opportunity quicksand iron is yours. Otherwise, we can't even be friends." Yuan Long vigorously scratched his head and looked at the bowl of 1,000 opportunity quicksand iron in his hand. He wanted to refuse, but he really couldn't bear to part with it. So, as if he had made up his mind, he took out the jar of monkey wine from behind his head and said, "Brother Lu, to tell you the truth, I really want this 1,000 opportunity quicksand iron, but I can't take this treasure of yours for free. Please don't look down on this jar of monkey wine. In the future, It will be good to leave it as a reward for the disciples of the clan. Lu Ping laughed and said, "All right, I will accept this. This monkey wine is also a rare treasure in the world. It may not be inferior to the 1,000 opportunity quicksand iron." Yuan Long understood in his heart that although the monkey wine could be considered a rare treasure of the world, as long as the intelligent great ape clan existed, the monkey wine could be produced in an endless supply, even though it was little. As for the 1,000 chance quicksand iron, it was something that could only be chanced upon and not sought. Why was the former General Yuan Pokong able to become the head of the 4 great generals of the Great Ape Clan? It was all because of the Qinji quicksand iron that Yuan Pokong had snatched from Xiaobayu that year, which was forged into the spiritual treasure Phantom Cudgel. When Yuan Pokong fought with the other 3 generals of the spiritual Great Ape Clan, he was actually able to fight against 3 of them and escape unscathed. Of course, it was said that Yuan Pokong also paid a great price for this. He was chased by Xiaobayu and beaten miserably. In the end, he fled back to the North Ice Field in a sorry state. From then on, the two could be said to have formed a grudge. Yuan Long pondered for a moment, and then said to Lu Ping in a serious manner, "Brother Lu, when I was drinking with you earlier, I seem to have heard that your treasured cauldron of heaven and earth replica is preparing to undergo the second thunder tribulation?" Lu Ping's heart skipped a beat, and he retracted his smile. "That's right. Ling Long has been accumulating quite a bit of strength over the years. I think she has a high chance of surviving the second lightning tribulation." "What's wrong, Brother Yuan? Did you notice anything wrong?" The treasured cauldron of heaven and earth in Taoist Ape's hands could regulate the world's spirit veins. It was one of the 6 great divine weapons of heaven and earth. As the direct descendants of Taoist Ape, it was normal for the Great Ape Clan to have some understanding of the treasured cauldron of heaven and earth. Sure enough, Yuan Long nodded and said, "Brother Lu, your treasured cauldron of Ling Long has indeed accumulated a lot of resources. It shouldn't be too much of a problem for it to survive the second thunder tribulation. However, if Ling Long survives the thunder tribulation, the effect of her basic control over the formation of spirit veins will at most double that of the first thunder tribulation. The treasured cauldron of heaven and earth can regulate the world's spirit veins." In fact, in the world of cultivation, there are many spirit veins that the treasured cauldron of heaven and earth's imitation spirit treasures have gathered. These spirit veins are collectively known as the void spirit veins. Because the gathered spirit veins have never been able to condense and form, in order to be able to release the imitation spirit treasures from the void spirit veins, there are alchemists in the world of cultivation who have created a type of spirit-gathering Dharma treasure to suppress the void spirit veins and release the imitation spirit treasures of the treasured cauldron of heaven and earth. A spirit-gathering Dharma treasure? Lu Ping had seen such a Dharma treasure before. Years ago, on the Silver Sword Island in the East Sea of Skyrend, there had been a private trade fair. At that time Lu Ping, who was still an early-stage core forging cultivator, had followed Liang Xianfeng and Laozu, who were in the late-stage core forging realm. This spirit-gathering Dharma treasure was a spirit-gathering Dharma treasure, but there were only 2 spirit-gathering Dharma treasures condensed on it. Although a spirit-gathering Dharma treasure was just a Dharma treasure, it was not easy to refine. It could be said that it was second only to a heavenly abode Dharma treasure of the same rank. However, such a Dharma treasure was only refined to imprison a medium spirit vein. Moreover, after the spirit vein was sealed and suppressed, a cultivator had to constantly look after it, otherwise, it could still cause the spirit vein to flow away. However, even such a spirit-gathering Dharma treasure caused Liang Xianfeng to secretly follow the person who bid for it. He wanted to kill the person and take the treasure for himself. From this, one could see the importance of a spirit-gathering Dharma treasure to a sect. Lu Ping finally understood the problem, so he asked, "Brother Yuan, do you know what treasure is used to suppress the spirit vein in the wine cauldron of heaven and earth?" Yuan Long shook his head helplessly. "I'm not too sure about this. However, according to ancient legends, the treasure used to suppress the spirit vein in the wine cauldron of heaven and earth should be a tower." "A tower?" Lu Ping's heart skipped a beat, but his expression was still one of surprise. Yuan Long nodded. That's right, it's a pagoda. However, I don't know what this pagoda looks like, or how it was refined. Perhaps the old geezers of the wise Great Ape clan might know a bit more, but I'm afraid that it involves the secrets of our Great Ape clan. I'm afraid that even if Brother Lu wants these secrets, those old geezers won't tell you. Lu Ping revealed a slightly regretful expression and said, I naturally understand this principle. If it was me, then I would absolutely not tell anyone who wants to exchange for the secret of the wine cauldron, no matter how high the price is. Yuan Long nodded and said, It's good that Brother Lu is aware of it. Perhaps the secret of Linglong's advancement might not be known only by our clan. Whether Brother Lu can obtain information about the tower in the future will depend on Brother Lu's luck. Not long after, Yuan Long bid farewell to Lu Ping and headed southwest. According to Yuan Long, he was originally going to the southwest. It was said that after the battle of the 9 pure Yang great ancestors at Qingming River, the Peacock royalty of the Endless Mountain and the Lingyun Valley weren't peaceful anymore. He was going there to find someone to fight, but he encountered the disturbance caused by Lu Ping on the Qingming River. So he postponed his trip to the southwest and specially came to fight with Lu Ping. Lu Ping's expression did not change. The dual flying swords in his hands suddenly made a Milky Way surging, which seemed to roll up the Milky Way. Even the water of the Qingming River under his feet flowed against the current for dozens of feet, colliding with the current surging upstream and splashing in all directions. The falling light was immediately submerged by the surging sword light. However, this sudden attack was obviously premeditated for a long time. Naturally, it would not only have this method. At the moment when the light was submerged, a crimson light had already slashed horizontally from dozens of feet in front of Lu Ping, aiming at Lu Ping's neck. Bang! A stream of sparks suddenly exploded in front of Lu Ping. Unknowingly, the invisible water sword had already appeared in front of Lu Ping, blocking the horizontal slash of the crimson light. When the crimson light dissipated, it was actually a wing blade covered in feathers. However, at the moment when Lu Ping blocked these two attacks, a golden claw suddenly broke through the space behind Lu Ping, directly grabbing at Lu Ping's back. This claw could be said to have come without a sound. Obviously, this was a premeditated attack by the sneak attacker. This was the real killer move. If it were an ordinary cultivator, they would probably not be able to withstand this series of sneak attacks. However, how could Lu Ping be so easily schemed against? Just as the claw broke through the space behind Lu Ping's tyrannical divine sense had already detected an extremely subtle spatial fluctuation. This was obviously an expert who was extremely proficient in the art of sneak attacks. Unknowingly, Lu Ping's body had suddenly turned around. The attack aimed at Lu Ping's back was now right in front of Lu Ping. Lu Ping's left arm moved forward, and the index finger of his left hand pointed out, colliding with the golden claw. There wasn't the slightest sound or movement. It was just a silent collision. Then, the giant golden claw abruptly retreated, and a drop of blood oozed out from where Lu Ping's index finger had touched it. Then an angry cry came from the sky. When Lu Ping looked up, he saw the spiritual energy in the sky rapidly converging. The phantom of a majestic giant eagle appeared above Lu Ping's head. The giant eagle's head poked down, and its hook-like beak pecked at the top of his head. Lu Ping was furious. He shouted, "Are you done yet?" As he spoke, Lu Ping suddenly waved his right arm with his sleeve. The spiritual energy in the sky suddenly became chaotic. The spiritual energy giant eagle could no longer maintain its form, and immediately collapsed in midair. Lu Tianping of the North Sea. The spiritual energy giant eagle was dispersed by Lu Ping with a wave of his sleeve. Suddenly, two figures appeared in the sky. One of them was obviously within Lu Ping's expectations, but the other person made Lu Ping slightly surprised. The other person was none other than the first princess of the Peacock royalty, Yang Huajun. The other person was a young man with a cold expression and a sharp face. He was slightly thin and had broad shoulders. This person was the one who shouted Lu Tianping of the North Sea just now. He was also the lone eagle who failed to kill Lu Qiner in Magic Cloud City that day, and suffered a loss under Lu Ping's hands. Lu Ping ignored the lone eagle youth's clamor. He slowly floated up and said to Yang Huajun, "So it's fellow Taoist Yang. I haven't seen you for many years. I didn't expect to meet you here." When the lone eagle youth saw that Lu Ping didn't pay attention to him at all, a fierce look flashed in his eyes. However, his face was still indifferent, as if he didn't notice that Lu Ping ignored his existence. The golden peacock Yang Huajun also had a cold expression. When he heard Lu Ping's greeting, he twitched the corner of his mouth and said in a crisp voice, "I was passing by here and saw Lu Daoyu practicing swordsmanship. My hands were itchy, and I wanted to spar with fellow Daoyu. I hope fellow Daoyu won't blame me for offending you." Ing Ao was naturally the lone eagle youth next to Yang Huajun. However, his previous attacks were all aimed at Lu Ping's vital points. Moreover, his moves were sinister and vicious. Lu Ping really couldn't see that this lone eagle clan cultivator wanted to spar with him. It was clear that he wanted to kill him. Lu Ping nodded with a smile and said, "Since I'm passing by, I won't bother fellow Taoist any longer. If you have time in the future, fellow Taoist Yang can come to the North Sea as a guest. This Lu will definitely welcome you." From beginning to end, Lu Ping didn't even look at Ing Ao. Yang Huajun naturally noticed the subtle difference between the two and quickly said, "I've caused trouble for fellow Taoist. See you later." Lu Ping also smiled and said, "See you later." The escape light under Yang Huajun's feet flickered. Obviously, he was about to leave. Unexpectedly, the escape light dimmed. Yang Huajun couldn't help but frown and look back. Obviously, Ing Ao had stopped Yang Huajun from leaving. Lu Ping was still watching with a smile on his face. Yang Huajun said in a deep voice, "Brother Ao." Ing Ao ignored Yang Huajun's words of dissuasion. Instead, he stared at Lu Ping and said, "On the day of the Battle of Qingming River, Lu Daoyu was also watching from the side, right?" This was not a secret. That day, Lu Ping, Lu Tianyuan, and Tian Tian did not hide their tracks on the lonely hill on the south bank of Qingming River. Not to mention that they had fought with the direct descendants of Nine Profound Tower, Skyward Pavilion, and Purple Sun Palace before. Many people knew that Lu Ping was nearby. Lu Ping inadvertently glanced at Ing Ao and said, "Whether I was near Qingming River that day, shouldn't fellow Taoisting know better?" For some reason, Yang Huajun naturally looked at Ing Ao with a face full of doubt. However, he saw a flash of anger on Ing Ao's face. He was an outstanding cultivator among the young generation of Lone Eagle. Even among the third generation of cultivators in the entire cultivation world, there were few who could rival him. He had always thought highly of himself, but he didn't expect that he would accidentally suffer a loss from boss Lu Ping outside Qingming River that day. This matter had always been bothering him. Previously, when they were flying over Qingming River, Ing Ao suddenly discovered that Lu Ping was practicing swordsmanship in Qingming River, so he immediately used sparring as an excuse to sneak an attack on Lu Ping. But the method he used was to kill. He naturally knew the news of Lu Ping defeating Ma Si the Great, but this Ing Ao was already brooding over his defeat at the hands of Lu Ping, and the news of Lu Ping defeating a late Dharma adept made him even angrier. The Lone Eagle's temperament was originally extreme and stubborn, and this Ing Ao thought highly of himself. This time, when he was traveling with Yang Huajun insisted on traveling along Qingming River, and at the same time, he realized why Yang Huajun wanted to travel along Qingming River. Naturally, he wanted to kill Lu Ping. However, the attack was easily blocked by Lu Ping, and after Ing Ao suffered a loss again, he saw Lu Ping and Yang Huajun talking, as if he was nothing, which made Ing Ao burn with jealousy, and he immediately had other thoughts. Lu Ping's mockery made Ing Ao hate him even more, and he said in a cold voice, "So you're also one of the suspects?" This sentence was directed at Yang Huajun, but Lu Ping was confused, but he understood in his heart that this Ing Ao obviously wanted to smear his name. Yang Huajun immediately frowned and said unhappily, "Brother Ing, please be careful with your words. Uncle Jichang died because he was surrounded, and it has nothing to do with Lu Daoyu." Ing Ao laughed coldly. That day he also had two brothers with him. Don't forget that this person could even defeat a late Dharma adept. It's not impossible for him to join forces with his two brothers to kill Senior Jichang and take his natal feather. Enough! Yang Huajun interrupted Ing Ao's words coldly and said, Brother Ing, you've lost your composure. Some things can't be said casually. Ing Ao didn't expect Yang Huajun to be so protective of the human adept in front of him, and his expression instantly became even more gloomy. Yang Huajun apologized to Lu Ping. Huajun is really ashamed about what happened today. If I've offended you, Lu Daoyu, please don't blame me. In the future, Huajun will definitely apologize to you personally. I'll take my leave now. With that, the conveyance light under Yang Huajun's feet flashed again. This time, Ing Ao didn't stop him, and the two disappeared in midair together. And Yang Huajun was undoubtedly a member of the Peacock royalty who was traveling, and he was accompanied by the young talent of the Lone Eagle, Ing Ao. After his famous uncle, Yang Jichang, was killed and his life plume feather was taken, he and Ing Ao immediately began to investigate the matter. A golden-red escape light flashed in the sky and landed on a hill not far away. The escape light disappeared, and Yang Huajun, who had a frosty expression, and Ing Ao, who was silent, walked out one after another. Brother Ao, why are you like this today? Yang Huajun asked coldly. She understood what the elders of the royal family meant this time. After Ing Li died in the Five Elements tortoise, the marriage between the Lone Eagle and the Peacock royalty was suddenly interrupted. However, there did not seem to be any estrangement between the two clans because of this. Although the 5 Peacock princesses were safe and sound, in order to rescue the 5 princesses from the 5 Elements tortoise, the Peacock royalty had lost 2 late Dharma adepts. This was a serious loss. The two clans worked hard to unite. After the marriage between Ing Li and Yang Rujuan failed, the two clans pushed out Yang Huajun and Ing Ao. Both of them were the best of the younger generation of the two clans. Yang Huajun was the eldest princess of the Peacock royalty, and Ing Ao was the top expert of the younger generation of the Lone Eagle. In the eyes of the two clans, these two were a perfect match, and the significance of this was even greater than the marriage between Yang Rujuan and Ing Li. After the death of Ing Li, not only did the Peacock royalty and the Lone Eagle no longer have any animosity, but they also cooperated more closely. This time, Yang Huajun and Ing Ao went out to travel together. In fact, it was an act of matchmaking by the elders of the two clans. Not only did Yang Huajun know about this, but Ing Ao also knew about it. During the period of time they had spent together, the relationship between the two of them could be considered pleasant. However, both of them understood that there was a barrier between them. Both of them were prideful and cold people of few words. Even though Ing Ao took the initiative, it was obvious that Ing Ao wasn't used to it. It was just that the two of them had no choice but to brace themselves and adapt to each other, due to their respective tribes and races. However, this time, after seeing Lu Ping, Ing Ao no longer had his usual calmness. On the contrary, his performance could even be said to be clumsy, which made Yang Huajun very dissatisfied. He even did not hesitate to question Ing Ao. Unexpectedly, Ing Ao's mind was subtle. Seeing that Yang Huajun stood on the side of Lu Ping, he was even more annoyed in his heart. However, after all, he was a sensitive person. Previously, he had lost his sense of propriety in front of Lu Ping, and immediately became vigilant. Although Yang Huajun's questioning tone made him angry, he would not show this on his face. So, with a slightly ashamed expression, he said, "I shouldn't have done it. It's just that this person launched a sneak attack for no reason outside Magic Cloud City. You know that this person is very strong, but I suffered a big loss. When I saw him just now, I inevitably had the thought of revenge. I couldn't calm down for a while, so I seem to have lost my composure." "Oh." Yang Huajun frowned slightly and said, "Brother Ao once fought with Brother Lu outside Magic Cloud City?" When Ing Ao heard Yang Huajun call Lu Ping brother, he felt even more uncomfortable in his heart, but he still said, "Yes, at that time, this Lu Daoyu seemed to be coming out of Magic Cloud City." Speaking of this, Ing Ao suddenly seemed to realize something. he exclaimed in surprise and said, "Could it be that this person discovered something and tried to stop me?" Yang Huajun thought for a moment and shook his head. It shouldn't be. When he came out of Magic Cloud City, he should have just returned from the South Sea. He shouldn't have anything to do with Magic Cloud City. As for attacking Brother Ao, it's a bit strange. Could it be because of Ing Li? Ing Ao was shocked when he heard this. He asked in a deep voice, "Why? Could it be that Brother Li's death is also related to this person?" Yang Huajun was slightly startled. He hurriedly shook his head and said, "That's not it. But the two of them did have some conflict before. And Brother Li was defeated by Brother Lu." Ing Ao's eyes were indeed glowing fiercely. He said, "In that case, Brother Li's death might be related to this person." Yang Huajun still wanted to say something, but was interrupted by Ing Ao. He said, "I know what you mean, but when Brother Li died he wasn't there. It doesn't mean that Brother Li's death has nothing to do with him. No matter what, I will investigate this matter. If it's really related to this person, humph." Although Ing Ao didn't say what he would do, it wasn't difficult for Yang Huajun to guess. It was just that she didn't expect things to develop to this point with Ing Ao. Originally, she also wanted to tell Ing Ao one thing. That was, in the woods outside Magic Cloud City, Lu Ping and his followers had slaughtered a group of Mara's team driven away by the peacock race. At that time, Yang Zhongchang, who was responsible for driving away Mara, had reported this matter to the clan. Yang Huajun also knew about this matter in detail. Yang Huajun originally thought that at that time, Lu Ping had actually discovered Yang Zhongchang and the others and realized the peacock race's plot against Magic Cloud City. So he took action to deal with Ing Ao. After all, humans and demons were different. Chapter 1187. Bang! 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 Several tens of devil luos suddenly flashed out from the forest using various escape techniques, charging toward Yang Huajun and Ing Ao, who were on the top of the hill from all directions. How could there be Mara here? A gust of wind blew, and more than 10 wind azuras appeared from the gust. They blocked the two's escape route in one fell swoop, and at the same time, they charged toward them. The clouds in the sky were stirred up by these wind azuras. Yang Huajun and Ing Ao had no time to think, and hurriedly blocked Mara's attack. Ing Ao's natal item was a pair of First Tribulation Spirit Treasure winged blades, which looked like they were refined from the feathers of his body. The winged blade spun in his hand, and instantly grew to a length of 5 feet. 2 blade lights flew out, and 2 wind azuras that swooped down from the sky were instantly cut in half. Yang Huajun, on the other hand, was only wielding a spirit-nurturing Dharma treasure. It was a silver longbow. She inserted a golden feather into the bowstring of the longbow, and a longsword suddenly appeared in her hand. She pulled the longbow fully and loosened it, and the arrow suddenly disappeared. Among the demonic luos in the distance, the 2 that were running at the front suddenly knelt on the ground, and a finger-sized hole had appeared in their chests. The 2 of them attacked viciously. In just a single move, they had each killed 4 demon luos. Immediately, the demon luos that were pouncing toward them stopped in their tracks. They only surrounded the 2 of them on the hill in the center from afar. "This group of Mara is strange," Yang Huajun said in a deep voice. Ing Ao's expression was also very ugly. He glanced around and said, "There are about 100 of them, and most of them are big Mara. If we force our way out, we can still break through. But there must be a blood Mara hiding behind this group of Mara. I'm afraid that he will suddenly attack us when we break through. That would be terrible." Although this group of Mara did not have a blood Mara, most of them were big Mara that was equivalent to the middle or late Dharma stage. If they swarmed the 2 of them together, even if they were both in the middle Dharma stage, they had to be careful. The key was that there might be a hidden blood Mara. If he suddenly attacked, the 2 of them would be caught off guard and would suffer a great loss. Another breeze blew over the hill. Yang Huajun and Ing Ao nervously watched the Mara army that was getting closer and closer to them. It was not that the 2 of them did not know how to break through, but that behind this group of Mara army, not only had the figure of a blood Mara appeared, but even the aura of a jade Mara was becoming more and more obvious. Even if the two of them were dark and cold people, their expressions were unusually ugly at this moment. Using so many Mara just to surround the two of them, it seemed like a trap no matter how they looked at it. It was not that Mara did not have the wisdom to set up traps, but the two of them did not expect that they would actually encounter such a special honor. It was just that the two of them did not notice that when the breeze blew over, a white cloud slowly floated over from the sky, and the clouds that were previously disturbed by the appearance of the wind Azura also gradually gathered above the top of the hill. When Lu Ping arrived, Mara had already launched an attack on Yang Huijun and Ning Ao. More than 100 Mara attacked the two of them like cannon fodder. A few blood Mara wandered outside the battle, cutting off the two of them's escape route. At the same time, the blood demon also used all kinds of strange soul-devouring magic to disturb the two of them. Near the battle, Lu Ping even sensed the aura of 2 Jade Mara. What a huge formation! It looked like a trap specially set up, but it was unknown whether it was specially set up for the two of them, or whether it was set up for the prey to fall into the net. However, this area seemed very desolate, not a good place to set up a trap. It seemed that even though the high-level Mara had some wisdom, it was still limited. How many people would pass by if they set up a trap here? It could not be that Mara had specially set up a trap to wait for them here, right? Yang Huijun and Ning Ao were really lucky. Just as the two of them killed 3 great Azuras that pounced on them, a blood demon that had been wandering outside suddenly shouted at the two of them on the top of the hill. An imperceptible ripple instantly reached the two of them, and the bodies of Yang Huijun and Ning Ao inevitably paused, obviously affected by the blood demon's attack. The 2 blood Azuras immediately took the opportunity to charge into the battle. Lu Ping saw it clearly from the sky, and thought to himself that the 2 blood Azuras were most likely going to suffer a great loss. Sure enough, 2 screams were heard, and the 2 blood Azuras were quickly pushed out from the battle. However, one of them had its arm and half of its shoulder chopped off, while the other's neck was torn in half by a bowstring that was suddenly thrown out, and it was almost decapitated. However, just as Yang Huijun and Ning Ao were planning to seriously injure the 2 blood Azuras, a huge tree not far away from them suddenly exploded. Countless branches, leaves, and roots were obviously enhanced by a secret technique, and for a moment, they shot towards the two of them with a power that was not weaker than magic treasures. Things happened in a hurry, and the two of them hurriedly used their own means to block the attack, and at the same time flew back. However, just as the two of them flew up, they suddenly found themselves suddenly being oppressed and pulled by a huge force, and they were fiercely smashed to the ground. The two of them barely managed to control their bodies, but the force of using all their strength to retreat was still there, and they still involuntarily took 2 steps back. Following that, the two of them let out a cry of pain. When they looked down, they did not know when a few stone spikes had emerged from the ground, piercing through their 4 feet, and nailing them to the ground. Earth Azura! Lu Ping was stunned. This was a branch of the Azura clan that he had never seen overseas. The Azura clan was roughly divided into 7 main branches: metal, wood, water, fire, earth, wind, and ice. The only Azura branch that Lu Ping had not seen overseas was the Earth Azura branch, and the Earth Azura he saw today was a Jade Azura. Moreover, this Earth Azura was obviously extraordinary. The magic power that controlled the surrounding fields and the strange stone spikes had seriously injured both Yang Huijun and Ning Ao. Of course, this was also because the wood Azura hiding in the huge tree had suddenly attacked, which caused the two of them to be unable to divert their attention to deal with it. Both of their feet had been pierced. Although the two of them had sealed their wounds, whether it was flying or dodging, it still affected the two of them greatly. The Demon Luo's team took advantage of the situation to attack the two of them. Even the 2 Jade Shura didn't hide anymore, as they thought the two of them couldn't escape. They started to attack the two of them with the help of the remaining 3 Blood Demon Luos. The Demon Luos who were supposed to be fighting the small Demon Luos were now the ones who were waving flags and cheering. At this moment, Ning Ao appeared to be a little more unyielding. He tried his best to execute the supreme divine ability of the Lone Eagle clan, combining the 2 winged sabers with a spatial divine ability to move about randomly around the two of them. It was as though a world of saber light had been formed. In this world, other than Ing Ao and Yang Huajun, there was no place for the other evil Luos. 4 or 5 big Mara were swept into the blade light formation and smashed to pieces. One of the blood Azuras was a step too slow, and at the same time, his companion's spiritual treasure was smashed, and the other blood Azura had 2 fingers cut off. Even though the 2 jade Azuras had retreated from the blade light formation, they looked very embarrassed. In midair, Lu Ping, who had turned into a cloud, looked unusually solemn. This blade light formation was very powerful, and the Ingli that he had met in the 5 elements hidden tortoise formation could not be compared to this Ing Ao. Just at the moment when the blade light formation was set up, Ing Ao hurriedly said, "I will stop them. Sister Hua, quickly open the space passage." Lu Ping looked over and saw that while Ing Ao was using the blade light formation to block the attacks of the 2 jade Azuras, Yang Huajun took out a purple gold talisman that was half a foot long from his storage space. The space teleportation talisman was a talisman that was more advanced than the escape talismans that Lu Ping had seen before. It was obviously made by a master who made talismans, and it could still open a stable space passage, even if the nearby space was disturbed to a certain extent. After the space teleportation talisman was activated, the purple gold talisman began to burn. As the talisman dissipated, the space behind them also shattered, and finally formed a pitch-black space door. The two of them were overjoyed. Ignoring the injuries on their feet, they rushed into the space door one after another. The space door seemed a little unstable, and after a few shakes, it began to quickly close up. But would they be able to escape now? Lu Ping, who had turned into a cloud, had already floated behind the small hill. There was still a jade demon hidden here. Just as the last, almost undetectable crack in the space door was about to close up, the jade demon suddenly attacked. The companion's spiritual treasure in its hand was like a jade chime, and after a crisp sound, the space crack that was about to close up suddenly collapsed. Tens of feet away, Yang Huajun and Ing Ao fell from midair with disheveled hair and ragged clothes. Then, both of their faces turned pale at the same time, and they spat out a mouthful of blood. The use of space magic was the most dangerous when someone interfered with it. Not to mention the fact that the two of them were only mid-dharma adepts. Even great adepts in pure Yang Laozu would be in grave danger if someone interfered with them during the space teleportation. The two of them should be thankful that they survived with only some internal injuries. However, at this moment, the two of them were not in the mood to be thankful. If they were interfered with when opening the space door, they would die. Now that they were heavily injured and surrounded by a jade demon, they would die as well. At this moment, Yang Huajun and Ing Ao seemed to be in despair. It was just that the trap that Mara had laid today was really well planned, and the jade demon seemed to have predicted that they would have a way to escape. As for Lu Ping, who was in the clouds, he was still hesitating about whether he should help them. However, at this moment, Lu Ping suddenly froze, and a look of surprise appeared on his face. He looked into the distance, far behind the hill, and there were 3 flowing lights that Lu Ping felt were exceptionally familiar flying in their direction. This was too much of a coincidence. Chapter 1188. I didn't expect it to be the 3 of them. Lu Ping watched as the 3 streaks of light flew towards the hill. When they were about 5 kilometers away, they had clearly sensed the situation at the top of the hill. The 3 streaks of light stopped there for a moment, then flew towards the hill again. More than 5 kilometers away, Qing, who was the first to notice the situation at the top of the hill. Qing Lang and Qing, who both stopped as well. Big sister, it seems like someone is being surrounded by Mara. Qing, who slowly retracted the divine sense that he had stretched out with great effort. Clearly, being able to perceive the situation over 5 kilometers away was a little too much for him. However, a hint of doubt flashed across his face. Clearly, it was rather strange for a group of devil luos to besiege a group of cultivators in this wilderness. Qing Lang's cultivation was slightly lower than Qing Hu's, but Qing Lang was clearly more intelligent than Qing Hu. He said in a low voice, Big sister, we can't stay here for long. Moreover, the three of us are not out of danger yet. The people from the 9 mystical tower could catch up to us at any time. Qinghu also said, then let's ignore them. We should hurry and find that Lu Tianping. I heard that he's traveling along the Azure Netherworld River, but he's walking like a snail. If we knew that he's still dawdling downstream, we wouldn't have to take the risk of waiting for him in the 9 mystical towers territory, only to be discovered by that crazy woman, Zhu Jiluan. Qing Lang glared at him, then said to Qinghu, Big sister, that Lu Tianping is really powerful now. Even a great cultivator was defeated in battle. We have to find him as soon as possible. Only then will we not have to fear the pursuers behind us. And only then will we have a chance to rescue Little 4, Little 7 and Little 8. Qinghu pondered for a moment, then said, the 2 trapped are 2 Yao cultivators. One is a peacock, the other is a lone eagle. Qing Lang was startled. Lone eagle? After saying that, he fell silent. Qinghu said loudly, then what are we waiting for? Little 5 has the bloodline of the Lone Eagle clan. And he even received guidance from a senior of the Lone Eagle clan. He swore a long time ago that he would repay this favor to the Lone Eagle clan. Now that a cultivator of the Lone Eagle clan is in trouble, and Little 5 is no longer here, we should rescue him. This can be considered as returning this favor on behalf of Little 5. Qinghu nodded and said, second brother is right. Moreover, the All-Devil clan is a great enemy of the cultivation world. Since we've encountered them, we should naturally do our best. It can be considered as killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Qing Lang hurriedly said, we'll just save those 2. Looks like the Mara clan that's besieging them isn't weak, so don't drag us here with you. After all, that crazy bitch from the 9 Profound Pavilion is still chasing after us. And we'll be in trouble if she catches up to us. Qinghu noticed that Qing Lang was staring at him as he spoke, and he immediately became angry. Why do you keep staring at me? I won't cause any trouble. Qing Lang snorted coldly. I hope so. Qinghu immediately said angrily, what do you mean by that? Qing Lang said in a low voice, if you hadn't killed so many people that the 9 Profound Pavilion seized the opportunity to surround you, how could 7th sister and the others have been captured by that crazy bitch, Zhu Jiluan? How could 4th brother and the others have died? Qinghu's furious expression suddenly froze, and he was just about to say something when he heard Qinghu suddenly shout, enough! All of you shut up! Qinghu and Qing Lang both snorted coldly and did not say another word. Qinghu then said, open up a path from the outside and save those 2, then we'll leave. 3 streaks of light once again rose into the air and flew towards the hill. Very quickly, Yang Huajun and Ning Ao noticed Qinghu and the other 2. At this time, there were people flying over to help the 2 of them. Yang Huajun said loudly, thank you for your help, fellow Taoists. Please leave your names, and Yang Huajun will repay you generously in the future. Qinghu and the other 2 were now Dharma adepts, especially Qinghu herself, who had already passed the 2nd lightning tribulation. Her abilities were only slightly weaker than those of the top heirs from the Holy Lands. Qinghu and Qing Lang could also be considered experts in the early Dharma stage. The 3 of them attacked, and the first thing they did was to keep the Jade Demon occupied. Cyan Fox swung her giant axe at the Jade Demon's head with a force that could split mountains. She caught the Jade Demon off guard, and for a time, the Jade Demon was forced to retreat. However, Qinghu knew her own abilities. Among the adepts of the same level, although Qinghu was considered an expert, she was not strong enough to fight a Jade Mara head-on. She was only relying on the indomitable aura of her axe technique, and the fact that she had caught the Jade Demon off guard. Once the Jade Demon survived this wave of attacks from Qinghu, it would be Qinghu's turn to suffer. Just as Qinghu was temporarily holding off a Jade Demon, Qinghu and Qing Lang also made their moves. They broke through the Mara's encirclement and launched a sneak attack on 2 injured Blood Shura, severely injuring them once again. After that, the 2 of them did not wait for the 2 dying Blood Shuras to finish them off. They suddenly turned around and joined forces to attack a Blood Shura that had been cooperating with the Jade Demon to attack Yang Huajun and Ning Ao. Just as Qinghu and the other 2 suddenly joined the battle, Yang Huajun and Ning Ao suddenly erupted with power. Although the two of them were already heavily injured, it did not mean that they did not have any trump cards up their sleeves that they could use to fight to the death. This was the last chance for the two of them to escape with their lives. Naturally, both of them would use their trump cards to fight for their lives. Yang Huajun flipped the longbow in her hand, and the broken bowstring was reattached. She pulled the longbow to its fullest, but there was no arrow on the bowstring. The life feather on the bowstring was glowing with a golden light. As the life feather dimmed, there was an arrow on the bowstring that was glowing with a golden light. It was pointed at the jade shura that was not far away from her. At the same time, the wings in Ning Ao's hands suddenly disintegrated, turning into 108 black and red feathers. Each feather was a sharp feather blade. It was 108 spiritual treasures, and they formed the sword light matrix again. But this time, the power of the sword light matrix was several times greater than before. Facing the sword light matrix, the other jade shura that Ning Ao was fighting quickly retreated. The two jade shuras were forced to retreat, not daring to go forward to fight. The two of them quickly rushed toward Qing Hu and Qing Lang. After meeting up with the two of them, the four of them worked together to support Qing Hu, who was now being beaten by the jade demon. The two jade shuras that had been shaken off had recovered, and they were chasing after the four of them. They obviously did not want to let go of the fat meat in their hands. Right at that moment, a loud roar came from the forest outside of the book. Before the roar had even stopped, a flash of lightning had already landed on the ground. A figure then appeared from within the lightning. If it was not Yuan Jinglei from the Yuan family, who else could it be? Yuan Jinglei's arrival near the hill was not only unexpected by Yang Huajun, Qing Hu, and the others, but also by Lu Ping, who was hiding in mid-air. Looking at the direction of the long cry, it was only a few miles away from the forest. But even with Lu Ping's mind, he did not notice that someone was hiding there. The Yuan family was the top family in the world, and their inheritance could be traced back to the time when the sky was first opened. They had many amazing skills. Just as Lu Ping was marveling at the power of the Yuan family, Yuan Jinglei shouted, "Don't panic, everyone. Yuan Jinglei is coming." As soon as he said this, several bolts of lightning as thick as water buckets exploded in front of Qing Lang, Yang Huajun, and the others, frightening the Mara army that was closing in on them. One bolt of lightning fell on the jade demon, who was fighting back against Qing Hu, to relieve some of the pressure on the green fox. Yuan Jinglei's participation changed the situation on the battlefield. Yuan Jinglei was an expert no weaker than the direct descendants of the Holy Lands, and his strength was on par with Yang Huajun and Ning Ao. Not to mention that he specialized in lightning magic that could restrain Mara. The three great jade Mara were intimidated. The two blood azuras that had been heavily injured by Yang Huajun, Qing Lang, and the others were immediately reduced to ashes by the bolts of lightning. Yuan Jinglei roared with laughter and said, "Everyone, why don't we join forces and kill this group of evil Luos, so that they don't cause trouble everywhere?" Unexpectedly, as soon as Yuan Jinglei finished speaking, Qing Hu was the first to speak. "Fellow Taoist of the Yuan family, the three of us only want to save these two to repay a favor to a senior of the Lone Eagle clan. Unfortunately, the three of us have other matters to attend to, so we can't stay here any longer. We're really sorry." Yang Huajun also spoke at this time. "I've written to fellow Taoist Yuan for your help, but Brother Ao and I are also seriously injured, and we're also exhausted from breaking out of the encirclement. I'm afraid we won't be of much help. We're really sorry." Yuan Jinglei was clearly a little embarrassed to hear all of this, so he hurriedly smiled and said, "Oh, it's my fault for not thinking things through. How about this? Everyone retreat first. I'll cover your retreat." With that, the sound of wind and thunder rang out, and several bolts of lightning fell, intertwining in midair, even forming a lightning net between the group and the pursuing Mara. Then Yuan Jinglei said, "Everyone retreat quickly. I can't hold out here for long." Yang Huajun said, "Fellow Taoist Yuan is a righteous person. Peacock Yang Huajun and Lone Eagle Ning Ao will repay this favor in the future. Also, I don't know how to address the three other Taoists, but the peacock royalty will definitely repay the kindness of saving us today. After getting rid of the jade demon, Qing Hu had already reunited with Qing Hu and Qing Lang. Hearing Yang Huajun's words, Qing Hu waved her hand and said, "There's no need for that. Today, we only help to repay the Lone Eagle's kindness. If fate allows it, we can continue to be polite in the future." With that, Qing Hu and Qing Hu soared into the sky. Qing Hu said loudly, "Thank you, fellow Taoist Yuan, for covering our retreat. We're out of danger now. Fellow Taoists should retreat quickly." Yuan Jinglei laughed loudly and said, "That's how it should be." With that, the Thunder King suddenly exploded, and countless bolts of lightning wreaked havoc, turning the area within a radius of several dozen zhang into a lightning domain. Mara's pained howls could be heard coming from within, and Yuan Jinglei had already taken the opportunity to escape several li away from the hill. Several more flashes of light appeared in the sky, and it was obvious that more people were flying in their direction. Qing Lang's expression didn't change, but his voice was unusually anxious as he said in a low voice, "Big sister, the 9 profound towers people are chasing us. We need to leave quickly." Chapter 1189. Not only did Qing Hu and the other two see the flickering light in the sky, even Yuan Jinglei, Yang Huajun, and Ying Ao had noticed it. Yuan Jinglei was overjoyed. "It looks like a fellow Taoist from the 9 profound tower. If we can ask for the help of fellow Taoists from the 9 profound tower to annihilate this group, there's a high chance that Mara will succeed. What do you all think?" Yang Huajun and Ying Ao, who were about to leave, were immediately tempted. It would be a lie to say that the two of them weren't furious after being besieged by Mara's inexplicable trap. However, when Yuan Jinglei invited the two of them, they were already an arrow at the end of its flight, and were unable to mount a counterattack. But now, if the 9 profound tower really joined in, it wouldn't be difficult for them to annihilate this group of Maras. Just as Yang Huajun and Ying Ao were feeling tempted, they suddenly heard Qing Hu and her siblings say, "Since that's the case, we'll be taking our leave first." With that, they didn't wait for Yuan Jinglei and the others to urge them to stay. Instead, they turned into streaks of light and left the area. Qing Hu and her siblings had ugly expressions on their faces. They didn't expect the 9 profound tower to catch up so quickly. Qing Hu blamed herself. She thought that they had already left the 9 profound tower far behind, but she didn't expect them to catch up so quickly. Otherwise, she wouldn't have gone to the Central Plains to save Yang Huajun and Ying Ao no matter what. These people definitely had some sort of method or treasure. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been able to discover and correct the direction of their pursuit so quickly. Yuan Jinglei and Yang Huajun looked at each other helplessly before flying towards the 9 profound towers cultivators from the north, hoping to get their help. As a result, the group of Mara on the hill seemed to have sensed that something was wrong and had already begun to retreat. If they didn't hurry, these Maras would probably disappear without a trace. As the three of them left, a mighty gust of wind blew in the sky once more. The white clouds that had just gathered in the sky were dispersed once more, then leisurely flew in the direction that Qing Hu and the others had left in. From the beginning to the end, Yuan Jinglei and the others didn't notice the abnormality in the sky. The 9 profound towers' light did not slow down in the slightest when Yuan Jinglei and the others went to meet them. On the contrary, it seemed to have sped up a little, as if it wanted to charge towards the three. Yuan Jinglei frowned and called out loudly, "Are you fellow Taoists from the 9 profound tower?" "I am Yuan Jinglei. There's a group of Maras on the hill in front of us. We want to exterminate them, but we don't have the strength to do so. Fellow Taoists, would you be willing to lend us a hand?" The light finally slowed down, and a woman's voice came from within. There was a trace of surprise in her voice. "You're from the Yuan clan?" Yuan Jinglei's lips curled into a smile. Just as he was about to speak, the woman's voice rang out again. "I don't have time to waste with you. Hurry up and get out of the way. Those 3 bastards escaped from you earlier, and I originally wanted to settle the score with you. It seems like you didn't know either, but don't stop me from capturing them now." Yuan Jinglei's face immediately darkened. Even Yang Huajun, and Ing Ao behind him had ugly expressions on their faces. They were people of high status, and the moment they announced their clan's name, they were used to receiving flattery and flattery. Even those of similar status would have to give them some face. When had they ever suffered such merciless ridicule? However, from the looks of it, there were at least 7 or 8 people in the group. Among them, there were a few whose auras weren't any weaker than theirs. It was obvious that they were people of high status in the 9 Profound Tower. Furthermore, they were rushing towards them in such an overbearing manner, as if they intended to start a fight. Yuan Jinglei, Yang Huajun, and Ing Ao had no choice but to dodge. A few streaks of light whizzed past them, and the proud voice of the woman from before could be heard. At the same time, they could vaguely hear a conversation. Senior Sister Jilwan. That Yuan Jinglei is one of the 3 young masters of the Yuan clan. The 2 beside him seemed to have extraordinary statuses as well, and they seemed to be from the peacock race and the lone eagle. How about we? Can't you have some guts? So what if they're the peacock or the lone eagle? We're disciples of the 9 Profound Tower. When have our statuses been lower than theirs? It's more important to chase after those 3 bastards. Just now they shot those 3 bastards. I'm already giving face to the forces behind them by not settling the score with them. Otherwise, don't blame me for not giving face to anyone who blocks our way. Yes, Senior Sister is right. For some reason, these people did not deliberately conceal their voices. Although the streaks of light were fast, Yuan Jinglei and Yang Huajun were not ordinary people. How could they not hear their conversation? A trace of anger flashed across Yuan Jinglei's face, but he quickly concealed it. On the other hand, Yang Huajun and Ing Ao's faces were ashen. Clearly, they were incomparably furious at the woman's arrogance. With a bitter smile on his face, Yuan Jinglei said, I was reckless and caused the 2 of you to be humiliated. However, I just remembered that this woman seems to have a special identity. No wonder she's so arrogant. Yang Huajun said in a deep voice, Fellow Taoist Yuan, who exactly is that woman? With a trace of difficulty on his face, Yuan Jinglei still opened his mouth and said, This woman is none other than the current 9 Palace Guard of the 9 Palace Tower, Zhu Jilwan. Without the slightest expression on his face, Yang Huajun said word by word, Zhu Jilwan, what a good Zhu Jilwan. With a bitter smile, Yuan Jinglei said, Although this Zhu Jilwan is only the 9 Palace Guard of the 9 Palace Tower, and she has just obtained this position, the person behind her is not simple. Although the eldest princess has a noble status, don't easily find trouble with her, okay? Ing Ao snorted coldly and said, Oh, so it's just a playboy from the sacred land of the Central Plains. I wonder who is behind this person. Brother Yuan, please tell me. Yuan Jinglei looked like he did not know what to do, and could only say in a low voice, This person's grandaunt is a 2nd-generation disciple of the 9 Palace Tower. Among the 2nd-generation practitioners of the entire human cultivation world, she is almost the 2nd person to step into the pure yang stage, 8th Sister Zhu Laozu. Although 8th Sister Zhu, the pure yang practitioner of the 9 Palace Tower, was a 2nd-generation disciple, her grandniece Zhu Jilwan was a 3rd-generation disciple, and was most doted on by 8th Sister Zhu Laozu. The hostility in Ing Ao's eyes instantly disappeared by half. In Ing Ao's view, even if there was a late Dharma adept behind this woman, even if there was more than one, he, Ing Ao, would not be afraid. However, the person behind this woman was actually a pure yang practitioner, Laozu. In that case, Ing Ao naturally would not do something like throwing an egg against a rock. Yang Huajun laughed coldly. The 2nd pure yang among the 2nd-generation practitioners? There were already 2 2nd-generation pure yang practitioners of the peacock royalty, and there were only 2 pure yang practitioners among the 2nd-generation practitioners of the human race. The eldest princess of the peacock royalty naturally had the right to laugh coldly. At this time, Yuan Jinglei also had no choice but to return to the human race and say, There are still some differences between the 2nd-generation practitioners of the human race and the demon race. The demon race has always had a longer lifespan than the human race. If the cultivators of the same generation have the same progress, the time that the demon race cultivators spend cultivating is usually 1 to 200 years longer than the human race, and the time that the demon race cultivators spend cultivating is usually 30 to 50 years shorter than the human race. However, the number of pure yang laozu in the human race and the demon race is almost the same. This is also the reason why the human race and the demon race are always in a stalemate, with no one able to do anything to the other. Having said that, in fact, the human clan had always been faster than the monster clan, so the two sides could still maintain a general balance. Nothing more than the human clan cultivators had a shorter cultivation time, and the pure yang clan cultivators had a faster replacement, while the monster clan cultivators had a relatively longer cultivation time, and the pure yang ancestor had a longer lifespan. But overall, in fact, the human clan still outnumbered the monster clan, which was why the most fertile areas of the cultivation world were occupied by the human clan cultivators. Qing Hu and the other two flew all the way to the sky above Qingming River, preparing to follow the river downstream to search for Lu Ping. However, the 9 profound towers' pursuers were right in front of them, and Qingming River was the widest and smoothest in the middle reaches, so the three of them were unable to scan the entire surface of the river with their divine sense. They could only try their best to fly downstream in an attempt to shake off the 9 profound towers' pursuers. However, the area around Qingming River was an endless stretch of flat land, without any cover. Even if the three of them could avoid the pursuers behind them, they couldn't shake them off. Qing Hu could no longer hold himself back. He said in a low voice, "We can't escape anymore. We might as well turn back and fight to our heart's content. If we continue to run like this, we won't be able to escape, and our Zhen Yuan will be mostly recovered." If they were to fight a battle of attrition with the cultivators from the sacred grounds, the cultivators from the sacred grounds could rely on all sorts of elixirs to recover Zhen Yuan. In the end, their Zhen Yuan would be completely exhausted. So what if they were to turn back and fight? Among the 9 profound towers' pursuers, there were 3 who had the qualifications to become the 9 heirs. Qing Hu and the other 2 were no match for them. Qing Hu, where do you think you're going this time? Are there still people from the Purple Sun Palace and the Spirit Beast Taming Sect coming to rescue you? Zhu Jiuwan's shrill voice came from afar, his tone filled with pride. Damn it! Big sis, third bro, you guys leave first. I'll fight them first. Qing Hu roared, and turned around to attack the 9 profound towers' pursuers. Qing Hu knew that they couldn't continue to run like this. Only by throwing caution to the wind and blocking the pursuers behind them would they have a chance at survival. However, just as he was about to turn around, Qing Hu grabbed his shoulder and said, "Don't be impatient, there might be a turn for the better." Qing Hu was stunned when he heard this, and even Qing Hu looked at Qing Hu with a hint of hope in his eyes. "Look at the fog around us." Fog. Qing Hu and Qing Lang looked around and discovered that there was indeed fog around them. However, the fog was so thin that it was almost non-existent. It seemed to be just a little thicker than the water vapor above the river. However, after the 3 of them flew for another few kilometers, Qing Lang was the first to feel joy in his heart. This was because the fog was indeed gradually becoming thicker. However, this change was too gradual, and neither he nor Qing Hu had noticed it before. Right at this moment, the 9 profound houses cultivators behind the 3 of them suddenly sped up, closing the distance between them by a few dozen feet. Qing Lang's expression changed. The 9 profound towers cultivators had also noticed that something was wrong. They were using secret techniques to increase their speed. Chapter 1190. The cultivators from the 9 profound tower suddenly sped up, quickly closing the distance between them and Qing Hu's group. They had clearly discovered that something was amiss with the mist that had suddenly appeared above the azure netherriver. However, as the cultivators from the 9 profound tower suddenly sped up, a thick mist suddenly rose up from the surface of the river not far away from Cyan Fox's team of 3. The mist billowed towards Cyan Fox's team. Qing Hu's group's expressions changed slightly, but in the end, they didn't bother dodging the 9 profound tower cultivators behind them. Instead, They charged headfirst into the thick mist and disappeared without a trace. The cultivators from the 9 Profound Tower seemed to pause in midair for a moment, but before they could do anything, the surging mist suddenly pounced on them and swallowed them whole. Qinghu's group of 3 immediately lost their sense of direction after entering the mist. They flew as fast as they could, but they couldn't get out of the mist. Their divine sense spread out in all directions, but it was like a clay ox entering the sea. The 3 of them knew that they had run into an ambush set up by another powerful cultivator. The 3 of them were on their guard, but their surroundings were completely silent. After a while, a rustling sound suddenly came from within the mist. Green Wolf pointed downwards, and Green Fox understood that Green Wolf was referring to the Azure Netherworld River. The 3 of them suddenly stopped flying and started descending. As long as they could land in the Azure Nether River, they would naturally be able to escape the mist formation. "Why are you running?" A soft voice rang in the ears of the 3, but it was no less than a clap of thunder. The 3 of them stood up in shock, only to discover that although the 3 of them had been falling all the way, it seemed that they had not fallen even an inch. But why did that voice sound so familiar? Qing Lang hurriedly looked at Qinghu, only to see her expression suddenly calm down. There was even a hint of joy in her eyes. Was it really Lu Tianping? A cloud of mist condensed in front of the 3 of them, gradually forming the outline of a person. As the mist continued to fuse with the person's outline also gradually became clearer. Who else could it be but Lu Tianping? Haha, I came to greet you guys first. Those 9 Profound Tower cultivators aren't easy to deal with. This Lu Ping smiled faintly and explained to the crowd. I was so focused on dealing with the 9 Profound Pavilion cultivators that I forgot to inform you guys. Qinghu exclaimed, Divine Sense Projection? Isn't this a skill that only late Dharma adepts who have gone through the second Thunder Trial have? How did you manage to do it? Qinghu's eyes darted around, and he suddenly said, No wonder you defeated the 4th elder of the Tenma people. You've already reached the late Dharma stage, I knew it. Qinghu and Qinghu looked at each other, and Qinghu could not help but say, Second brother, shut up. Qinghu was infuriated. Just as he was about to curse at Qing Lang, he heard Qinghu ask, How about you? Can you handle it? Those 7 Profound Pavilion cultivators are all heir disciples. 3 of them are the guardians of 7-Star Pavilion, 8 Trigrams Pavilion, and 9 Palace Pavilion. Their cultivation bases are probably not inferior to yours. Lu Ping smiled and said, I have the geographical advantage on the Qingming River. I can handle it for now. Qinghu also knew that he had said the wrong thing. Lu Ping could not be a late Dharma adept, but hearing that he could handle 7 Profound Pavilion cultivators by himself, and still have time to converse with the 3 of them through the Divine Sense Projection technique, Qinghu said sincerely, Impressive. I'm impressed. It was important to know that the 3 of them had been chased by the 7 Profound Pavilion cultivators for nearly 10,000 miles to the south. Naturally, they knew how powerful these 7 people were. The more they knew, the more Qinghu admired Lu Tianping's abilities. Lu Ping only smiled at Qinghu's praise. Although the Divine Sense Projection was a shadow, Lu Ping had used his Divine Sense to condense water vapor. In fact, it could be considered as having a body. This was quite similar to the art of deception, and it could also be clearly displayed in Lu Ping's application. Did you guys come all the way to the south just to find me? Qinghu made a sound of surprise and said, How did you know we were going all the way south? Lu Ping smiled and said, I was there when you guys helped Yang Huajun ending AO escape. I didn't want to see those 2, so I didn't tell you guys that I was hiding nearby. After that, I saw the 9 Profound Pavilion cultivators chasing after you guys, so I went back to the Qingming River first and made some arrangements, waiting for you guys to come over. After Lu Ping explained the whole story, the 3 of them were even more shocked. First Princess Yang Huajun and Lone Eagling AO, and then Yuan Jinglei, who came later, were all famous practitioners. Including Qinghu himself, they were all mid-Dharma adepts like Lu Ping. However, they never knew that someone was hiding near them. Lu Ping asked again, Previously, when we were in the South Sea, I heard from Su Jin of the Purple Sun Palace that the 9 of you had offended the 9 profound pavilion. After that, it was Brother Xie and Brother Sang who intervened to settle the matter. Why is the 9 profound pavilion looking for you guys again? Did something happen to Brother Xie and Brother Sang? Qinghu nodded and said, the last time Brother Xie and Brother Yi tried to punish the 9 profound pavilion, they were summoned back to their respective sects and never appeared again. However, this time, the 9 profound pavilion is chasing us because we provoked them first. Oh, so that's how it is. Lu Ping nodded, then suddenly frowned and said, wait a moment. I didn't expect this girl from the 9 profound pavilion to have such a treasure on her. As soon as Lu Ping finished speaking, the divine will projection in front of him suddenly dissipated. The real body that was fighting the 9 profound pavilion had obviously run into some trouble, and Lu Ping had no choice but to withdraw his divine will. The dissipated body turned into a spray of water, then fell down like a drizzle. The 3 of them looked at each other, then quickly stood back to back on high alert. Next, they saw the thick fog around them move in a certain direction. Soon after, the fog thinned. Clearly, the fog array that Lu Ping had just set up was about to be broken. Soon after, a cry of alarm came from within the fog, followed by a series of violent explosions. The violent shock waves of spiritual energy caused the rapidly shrinking fog to dissipate, but the fog continued to move in a certain direction. At the same time, a cacophony of curses could be heard, mixed with Zhu Jiuwan's slightly shrill voice. Clearly, Lu Ping and the 9 profound pavilions cultivators had encountered each other. However, from the sounds of the battle, it seemed that the 9 profound pavilions cultivators were the ones at a disadvantage. Suddenly, a dark light shone from the thick fog. The light grew brighter and brighter, and the surrounding fog became thinner and thinner. Then, a figure appeared 100 feet away from Qinghu and the others. The 3 of them tensed up, but they quickly realized that the figure's back was facing them, and it seemed to be Lu Ping himself. As the fog thinned, it flowed even faster, until finally, the fog retracted and disappeared into the spout of the glowing teapot. A jade-like hand beckoned to the air, and the black teapot slowly fell into it. This person was the 9 profound pavilions' direct disciple Zhu Jiuwan. At this time, there were only 6 people in Zhu Jiuwan's group gathered together, and they were about 100 meters away from Azure Fox and the others. One of them seemed to have suffered serious injuries, and his face was pale. He was being supported by 2 of his fellow disciples, who were also sweating profusely, and seemed to be treating his injuries. Lu Ping stood in front of the 3, facing Zhu Jiuwan and the others from a distance. Lu Tianping of the North Sea? Zhu Jiuwan stared at the person in front of her, and as for Azure Fox and the others behind Lu Ping, they were completely ignored. Lu Ping smiled faintly and said, "That's me." Zhu Jiuwan's expression was extremely ugly, and she said coldly, "Do you want to make an enemy of my 9 profound pavilion?" Lu Ping smiled faintly. "I wouldn't dare to be your enemy, but you don't seem to be the leader of the 9 profound pavilion. Fellow Taoist Zhu is too full of yourself." The anger on Zhu Jiuwan's face deepened, but the more angry she was, the more fearful she was of Lu Ping. She continued, "What relationship do you have with Azure Fox and the others, for you to be willing to make an enemy of my 9 profound pavilion?" Lu Ping still had a calm expression on his face, and he said, "I've already said that although you're the 9 palace guardian of the 9 profound pavilion, you can't represent the entire 9 profound pavilion. As for Azure Fox and the others, you've suffered at the hands of Brother Xie of the Purple Sun Palace and Brother Sang of the Spirit-Taming Beast sect, yet I'm very close to those 2. Surely you're aware of the relationship between us, fellow Taoist Zhu?" Back then, Xie Tianyang and Sang Yu had punished the 2 9 profound pavilion masters because of Azure Fox, and this matter had caused quite a stir in the Central Plains cultivation world. Many sects had even interfered, and Xie Tianyang and Sang Yu had been summoned back by their respective sects to cultivate in seclusion. From Lu Ping's point of view, it was more like facing the wall and reflecting on their mistakes. Zhu Jiuwan naturally knew that Xie Tianyang and Sang Yu had defeated the 2 tower masters of the 9 mystical tower. The reason why she had risen from the top 10 of the 9 mystical tower's direct disciples to the position of guardian tower master of the 9 palace tower was partly because of ancestor Zhu Bajia. But in fact, it was also because the previous 2 tower masters had been demoted by the 9 mystical tower. Zhu Jiuwan glanced at the injured junior brother beside her and said coldly, "Since Lu Daoyu insists on getting involved in this mess, I have nothing else to say. I ask Lu Daoyu to release my 8th senior brother and cure junior brother Su of the cold poison. We'll leave immediately after that." Azure Fox and the others immediately shuddered. Lu Ping had actually captured the 9 profound pavilion master. Qinghu didn't even think about it and immediately shouted, "You can't release him." The expressions of Zhu Jiuwan and the others immediately changed. Lu Ping also looked slightly surprised as he turned to look at the 3 of them. However, Azure Fox explained, "Brother Lu, the other party has captured 4th brother, 7th sister, and 8th brother. I hope Brother Lu can help them in exchange for them." Chapter 1191. Even though Lu Ping was highly skilled, he was still facing 7 direct disciples of the 9 Xian Tower at the same time, including 3 tower leaders. Naturally, he did not have the confidence to win, which was why he had used the cover of the fog to launch a sneak attack. Since they were not fighting head-on, the 8 trigrams master of the 9 Xian Tower was caught off guard and was captured alive by Lu Ping. Then he was thrown into the House of Gold and imprisoned. At the same time, Samling made his move. At this time, Samling was facing a direct disciple of the 9 Xian Tower, who was at the peak of the early Dharma stage. This was because Lu Ping had taken the initiative to launch a sneak attack and disrupted the formation of the 7 direct disciples of the 9 Xian Tower. He managed to pin down 6 of them, while the remaining one was surrounded by Samling. Although Samling was only at the peak of the core forging stage, Samling, who had condensed a 9th grade golden elixir, was already very powerful. Previously, they had joined forces to fight against a Dharma adept. Although they were facing a direct disciple of the 9 Xian Tower, they were not afraid. Just as Lu Bai and Lu Hai joined forces to block the attack from the 9 Xian Tower's cultivator, Lu Ling suddenly jumped out from the side and bit the cultivator's arm. At this time, the 9 Xian Tower's cultivator, who had suffered a series of setbacks, finally managed to retract the fog that Lu Ping had set up with the help of Zhu Jiuwan's black teapot. However, Samling had already returned to Lu Ping's side, and Lu Ping was standing in front of them. When the 9 Xian Tower's cultivator recognized Lu Tianping, everyone's expression changed. It was not only because Lu Ping was able to fight against a late Dharma adept, but also because they suddenly remembered that something shocking had happened to Lu Tianping. He had 3 green sea snakes by his side, and it seemed that the green sea snakes had sent a great practitioner to investigate. But in the end, the 3 green sea snakes had not been taken away from Lu Ping. The green sea snake's venom was well known in the world, and almost every green sea snake's venom was different, and the venom would increase with the green sea snake's level of practice. After one's level of practice had reached the Dharma stage, every green sea snake's venom could be considered a rare poison in the world. However, although the green sea snake's venom was strange, it was affected by the level of practice. With Lu Ling's current peak core forging cultivation, even if she bit the 9 Xian Tower's cultivator, she would not be able to remove or expel the venom for the time being. With the friar's strength at the peak of the early Dharma stage, it was completely possible for him to suppress the venom. However, in reality, at this time, the wound on the 9 Xian Tower's cultivator's arm had already been frozen by frost. No matter how much he mobilized the inner yuan in his body, he could not suppress the cold venom in his arm at all, unless he cut off his own arm. But if he did so, his physical body would be damaged. In the future, if he wanted to improve his level of practice, he would have to take a more arduous path than ordinary people. In reality, after Lu Linger had taken his breath, the cold venom stubbornly stuck to his arm and did not spread into the cultivator's body. It was also not suppressed by the cultivator's inner yuan in the slightest. Zhu Jiuwan had already understood the situation on his side at the first moment. He knew that today, he was afraid that he would be defeated by Lu Tianping. Originally, he had wanted to use the Nine Xian Tower's name to pressure Lu Ping into releasing the poison, but he did not expect that the Green Fox 9 bandits and Lu Tianping were actually jackals of the same tribe. At this time, Zhu Jiuwan remembered that when Lu Tianping first rose to prominence in the Central Plains, he had teamed up with Xie Tianyang of the Purple Sun Palace and Sang Yu of the Spirit-Taming Beast sect to fight against the fourth elder of the Tenma people, Mali. Previously, Xie Tianyang and Sang Yu had attacked the Nine Xian Tower's 7-star tower and 8 trigrams Tower Master because of the Green Fox 9 bandits, causing the 7-star Tower Master and 8 trigrams Tower Master to be demoted one after another. This was why the previous 9 Palace Tower Master was automatically promoted to the 7-star Tower Master, ranked 10th among the direct disciples. Now, the person who had been captured by Lu Ping had the right to directly become the 8-star Tower Master, and Zhu Jiuwan also had the opportunity to take control of the 9 Palace Tower. Not long after Zhu Jiuwan took control of the 9 Palace Tower, he once again targeted the Green Fox 9 bandits. There was no other reason, but he simply wanted to establish his authority over the Green Fox 9 bandits. 2 of the 9 Profound Tower's Tower Masters were deposed one after another. Admittedly, it was because they coveted the women of the Green Fox 9 bandits, but it was also because they lost to Xie Tianyang and Sang Yu in an extremely ugly manner. But after Zhu Jiuwan took control of the 9 Palace Tower, there were quite a few voices in the sect who believed that the reason she was able to take control of the 9 Palace Tower was because she had a grand aunt named Pure Yang, Laozu. If not for this grand aunt supporting her, Zhu Jiuwan wouldn't even be able to enter the top 10 direct disciples. In fact, before Zhu Jiuwan took control of the 9 Palace Tower, when she was only ranked 11th among the direct disciples, there were similar voices in the 9 Profound Tower. They said that the reason she was able to become a direct disciple was because of 8th sister Zhu Laozu. But at that time, these voices were very low. Zhu Jiuwan had a certain level of ability, so she completely treated these rumors as the jealousy of others. But after taking control of the 9 Palace Tower, her status rose once again. The 9 Tower Masters of the 9 Profound Tower had always been the direct disciples of the direct disciples. The person in charge of the 9 Profound Tower, as well as Laozu, had always been groomed from among the 9 Tower Masters. Being able to become one of the 9 Tower Masters not only meant that one's strength was superb, but it also meant that the 9 Profound Tower had spared no effort in grooming one. Thus, the competition between the 9 Tower Masters had always been extremely fierce. Thus, whether it was intentional or not, the pressure of public opinion caused by taking control of the 9 Palace Tower this time was something that even Zhu Jiuwan, with 8th sister Zhu Laozu's support, found it hard to bear. Thus, Zhu Jiuwan urgently needed to establish her authority, and the target of her authority was naturally the Green Fox 9 bandits, the instigators of the change in the position of direct disciple of the 9 Profound Tower. Because of the battle between Xie Tianyang and Sang Yu with the direct disciples of the 9 Profound Tower, the 9 Profound Tower had directly demoted the 2 Tower Masters, but the 2 of them had also been summoned back by their respective sects to reflect on their mistakes. Without their support, wouldn't it be easy for the Green Fox 9 bandits to capture them? However, the usually arrogant Zhu Jiuwan chose to be cautious this time. She did not hesitate to invite the 2 Tower Masters of the 7-star Tower and the 8 trigrams Tower to capture the Green Fox 9 bandits together. Just like Zhu Jiuwan, the 8 trigrams Tower Master had also been promoted from the 10th direct disciple to the 8th after the previous 2 Tower Masters were demoted. Although he did not receive as much criticism as Zhu Jiuwan, there were still people who coveted his position and were naturally eager to prove themselves. As for why they had invited the 7-star Tower Master, it was very simple. Although Zhu Jiuwan had received a lot of criticism from the entire 9 Profound Tower, she still had the pure young cultivator, Laozu, behind her. There was no lack of people in the sect who would purposely try to curry favor with her. This 7-star Tower Master And the other 4 direct adepts who had accompanied Zhu Jilwan out this time were obviously because of this reason. In reality, their original plan had been progressing rather smoothly. For some unknown reason, the Green Fox 9 bandits had once again appeared near the 9 Profound Tower, and from the original 9, there were only 6 of them left. After Zhu Jilwan and the others had captured 3 of them alive, the remaining 3 Dharma adepts, Green Fox, Green Tiger and Green Wolf, who had the highest level of training, had headed south. Zhu Jilwan and the others had chased them all the way, and were just about to succeed in one fell swoop, when the sudden appearance of Lu Tianping had ruined their plans. This time, Lu Tianping had once again stood up for the Green Fox 9 bandits. It was obvious that the Green Fox 9 bandits had some unknown relationship with Xie Tianyang, Sang Yu, and Lu Tianping. The Green Fox 9 bandits had always worked together. This time, Lu Ping had been puzzled as to why only Green Fox and the other 2 were together. He had initially thought that it was because the other 6 did not have a high enough level of training, but now he found out that 3 of them had already been captured. However, he did not know where the other 3 were. At this point, Zhu Jilwan's face had already turned green with anger. She opened her mouth and said, "How can the lives of a few lone practitioners be worth the lives of my 9 Profound Towers disciples? Lu Daoyu, if you insist on becoming an enemy of my 9 Profound Tower, have you thought about the consequences?" Lu Ping found it funny and said, "Since fellow Daoyu Zhu also thinks that my 3 good friends are just lone practitioners, and their lives aren't worth anything, then I ask fellow Daoyu Zhu to release my 3 good friends. In exchange, I will also release your 8 Profound Towers 8 Trigrams Master. Exchanging 1 for 3, your Sect's 8 Trigrams Master's value is not low." Fellow Taoist Zhu's words are indeed true. Although the Green Fox 9 bandits had already acknowledged Lu Ping as their master, even if it was not because of Sang Yu's status as Green Fox's sworn brother, Lu Ping would not deliberately use them as his slaves. In front of Zhu Jilwan, he only treated them as friends. Naturally, Zhu Jilwan did not know that the Green Fox 9 bandits had already acknowledged Lu Ping as their master. It was only right and proper for Lu Ping to stand up for them. She only knew that after failing on the verge of success, she would face even greater suspicion when she returned to the 9 Profound Tower. Even with her great-aunt's support, she might not be able to withstand the criticism of others. It was as if she could already see that the position of the Lord of the 9 Palaces, which she had obtained with great difficulty, would change hands once again. She would also become an ordinary direct disciple like the previous 2 lords who had been demoted. For a moment, her mind was in a mess, and the logic of her words was disordered, causing her own family to be dragged into this mess. At this time, it was clear that Lu Ping was standing up for the Green Fox 9 bandits, so Zhu Jilwan no longer dared to throw tantrums. She only hoped that she could bring back the people who came with her in one piece. Otherwise, there would be no room for negotiation. Even if 8th sister Zhu could cover the sky with one hand in the 9 Profound Tower, she would not have the face to occupy the position of 9 Hall's master. Zhu Jilwan gritted her teeth and said, "Fine, as long as you release 8th senior brother, I will also release the 3 bandits. However, you must first cure my junior brother Su of the cold poison." Lu Ping smiled. "Of course. If there is no need, I will not shed all pretense of cordiality and make an enemy of a sacred sect like the 9 Profound Tower. However, you have the advantage in numbers, so it is best that you release my 3 friends first." Zhu Jilwan's face darkened. "Then when will you release my 8th senior brother?" Lu Ping said, "You can rest assured. When my friends and I retreat to a safe place, the 8 Trigrams Master will meet up with you with the antidote." Chapter 1192. At this moment, the 7 Star House Master, who had been silent all this while, suddenly spoke up. "How can we trust you? What if you run away and refuse to let them go?" Lu Ping laughed involuntarily. "I've already said that I have no intention of becoming enemies with the 9 Profound Tower. It's one thing for all of you to be defeated by me, as it was only a personal spar after all. The 9 profound tower will naturally not cause trouble for me because of that. However, if I were to kidnap the 8 trigrams house master and poison another direct disciple of your sect, then I would truly become enemies with the 9 profound tower. I still have a sect behind me, so I would not do such an unwise thing. The 7-star house master snorted coldly. I hope you keep your word. Otherwise, even if you flee to the ends of the earth, the entire 9 profound tower will definitely hunt you down. Moreover, the North Sea Jinling sect will definitely be suppressed. With a trace of reluctance, Zhu Jiuwan took out the black teapot from before. She turned the lid of the teapot, and 3 people came out of the teapot. They were Qing Bao, ranked 4th among the Cyan Fox 9 bandits, Qing Ke, ranked 7th, and Qing Ho, ranked 8th. The 3 of them clearly did not know what was going on. Their spiritual energy was completely sealed, and they looked battered and exhausted. It was obvious that they had suffered quite a bit after being captured. Qing Hu was about to burst into curses when he saw this, and Qing Hu and Qing Lang's expressions did not look too good either. Fortunately, the 2 of them were still rational, and Qing Lang once again stopped Qing Hu before he could say anything. Lu Ping waved his hand, and a stream of water turned into 3 water blankets that caught the 3 people who had fallen from midair. Only then did the 3 of them see Qing Hu and the other 2, as well as Lu Ping, who was standing in front of them. When they saw Lu Ping, the 3 of them were clearly taken aback. Xiao Qi and Qing Ke's faces flashed with joy, but when they saw Lu Ping's eyes flash with a frightening azure light, Qing Ke jumped in fright. After the trio landed, Qing Hu and the others quickly rushed forward to check on Qing Bao and the others. However, they only saw Lu Ping pointing his finger, and a few rays of purplish-blue light shot into Qing Bao and the others' bodies. Immediately after, their bodies shuddered violently, and their cultivation auras burst out from their bodies because they couldn't restrain them in time. The 9 mystical towers' seal on their cultivations instantly shattered. Not far away, the faces of the 7-star pavilion master and Zhu Jiuwan sank. It had to be known that the technique they had used to imprison Qing Bao and the other 2 was a secret technique of the 9 Mysteries Tower. Originally, Zhu Jiuwan had wanted to have Lu Ping beg them to save some face. Never could he have imagined that their secret technique was not even worth mentioning in front of Lu Ping. Not only did they fail to save face, it seemed like they had been slapped in the face even more painfully, causing the fear they felt towards Lu Ping to grow even deeper. In a forest 25 kilometers away from the Qingming River, the 8 trigrams parlor's master looked at Lu Ping and said in astonishment, "So it's North Sea Water Sword Immortal. I didn't lose unjustly." Lu Ping smiled and said, "I used the fog as a cover to launch a sneak attack. That's why you fell into my trap. Don't take it to heart." After saying that, Lu Ping handed the bottle containing a drop of sweet due to the 8 trigrams parlor's master and said, "This is the antidote. You just need to spit it on your wound, and the snake venom in your senior brother's body will be neutralized." The 8 trigrams parlor's master took the bottle and looked at Qing Hu and the other 2. Then, he cupped his fists at Lu Ping and said, "I'll take my leave now. If we meet again in the future, I'll definitely seek Brother Lu's guidance. May we meet again." After saying that, he turned into a ray of light and disappeared. Qing Hu opened her mouth to say something, but was interrupted by Lu Ping, who said, "The 9 profound mansions people are already on their way here. It seems like they have some kind of secret technique to communicate with each other. Previously, this 8 trigrams parlor's master was sealed in a spatial artifact by me, so he lost contact with the outside world. That's why the 9 profound mansions people couldn't sense him. Now that I've released him, they've already come to meet up with us." Lu Ping's divine sense was far stronger than the 9 profound mansions people, so he could sense the 9 profound mansions' movements before they did. So he released a ray of light and swept everyone away, heading northeast. By the time the 9 profound mansions people arrived, Lu Ping and the others had already disappeared without a trace. The 8 trigrams parlor's master smiled bitterly and said, "I've already said that they've already left." The 7-star parlor master signaled him with his eyes to keep quiet. The 8 trigrams parlor master followed the 7-star parlor master's gaze and saw that Zhu Jiuwan's expression was very ugly. At this time, Zhu Jiuwan finally thought of something and turned around to ask, 8th senior brother, did that Lu Tianping leave behind the antidote? Oh. The 8 trigrams parlor master quickly took out the jade bottle that Lu Ping had left for him and gave it to junior brother Su, who was bitten by the green sea snake. Junior Su opened the jade bottle and sniffed it. However, he did not smell anything. After a moment of hesitation, he dripped the drop of dew from the jade bottle onto the wound on his arm. Then, he saw that the cold poison on his arm was quickly dissipating. Junior brother Su immediately relaxed and sighed. It's a pity that there's only one drop. If there's some left, I can give it to the alchemy grandmasters in the Sex Alchemy Lab to study it. Maybe they can refine the antidote. In the future, when we face the green sea snake, even if we can't completely defeat it, at least we can alleviate the poison. Seeing that junior brother Su's poison had been cured, Zhu Jiuwan immediately heaved a sigh of relief. Although this trip was fruitless, at least no one died. After returning to the 9 mystical tower, even if they were ridiculed by others, with the support of her grand aunt, they could at least keep their position as the 9 halls parlor master. However, after hearing junior brother Su's words, Zhu Jiuwan still looked at the 8 trigrams parlor master. If they could really bring the antidote back to the Sex Alchemy Lab and develop an antidote for the green sea snake poison, then it would be a pleasant surprise. It was much better than returning empty-handed. She just didn't know if the 8 trigrams parlor master also had the same idea and secretly kept the extra antidote. When the 8 trigrams parlor master saw Zhu Jiuwan's gaze, how could he not understand her meaning? He couldn't help but regret following Zhu Jiuwan on this trip. However, the 8 trigrams parlor master had seen how Lu Ping gave him the antidote. His heart turned black, and he opened his mouth to say, well, actually, the antidote is not something else. I saw with my own eyes that little girl spit a mouthful of saliva into the jade bottle. Zhu Jiuwan suddenly felt a wave of disgust. Junior brother Su had previously smeared the antidote on his arm and kept sniffing it with his nose. When he heard the 8 trigrams parlor master say that the so-called antidote was just a mouthful of saliva from Lu Linger's mouth, he immediately pointed at the 8 trigrams parlor master and was speechless. His face was red, as if he was about to vomit everything in his stomach. The 8 trigrams parlor master looked at everyone with an innocent face. What he said was not wrong, but in his heart, he was already very happy. The 7 stars parlor master shook his head helplessly. The other disciples of the 9 mystical tower also had a strange expression on their faces. Lu Ping and the others flew all the way to a mountain range 1,000 miles away. Only then did they slowly descend from the sky. Turning back to look at Qing Hu and the other 5, Lu Ping asked, where are the other 3? Everyone's faces turned gloomy. Qing Hu said, the other 3 brothers have all fallen. Lu Ping frowned and said, he's dead? Was it done by the 9 mystical tower? Qing Hu's face was a little ugly. Just as he was about to say something, Qing Lang, who was beside him, said, yes, we discovered an ancient ruin. When we were exploring it, something unexpected happened and alerted the people of the 9 mystical tower. After we left the ruin, we were accidentally discovered by the cultivators of the 9 mystical tower, who were searching the mountain. When we broke out of the encirclement, 5th brother, 6th brother, and 9th sister were killed by the people of the 9 mystical tower. Lu Ping glanced at the remorseful Qing Hu. He knew that there was more to this matter than meets the eye. However, Qing Lang was obviously unwilling to talk about it, so Lu Ping naturally wouldn't deliberately ask. He only said, that means the ruin is near the 9 mystical tower, and it has already been discovered by them? This time, it was Qing Hu who shook her head and said, it's impossible for them to have discovered it. The ruin is extremely well hidden, and we were only able to enter it by chance after obtaining a token to enter it. Unfortunately, our cultivation was not high enough, so we only managed to obtain some benefits from the outer perimeter. Who would have thought that we would still alert the people of the 9 mystical tower? While we were breaking out of the encirclement, 5th brother, sixth brother, and ninth sister were killed by them. Lu Ping asked, "How long ago was this?" Qing Hu thought for a moment, then said, "About 20 to 30 years ago. At that time, only Qing Hu and I had reached the Dharma stage. At that time, the people who tried to kill us were the two leaders of the 9 mystical tower. If it wasn't for the fact that the 9 mystical towers cultivators wanted to pry the secret of the ruin from us and let their guard down, because they knew that we would not be able to escape, and I had a teleportation charm with me from the ruin, I'm afraid that the remaining 6 of us would have died at their hands." Qing Hu finally found an opportunity to say loudly, "The two leaders of the 9 mystical tower are very famous in the world of cultivators, but they are people who deceive the world. When they saw eldest sister and sixth sister, they wanted to violate them." Qing Lang, who was standing at the side, said, "All right, that's enough." Lu Ping furrowed his brows. After that, the battle between Brother Xie and Brother Sang, and the two leaders of the 9 mystical tower happened? Qing Hu did not expect Lu Ping to know about this, and could not help but blush. "That's right. Originally, I called Brother Xie and Brother Sang along to search for the ruin, but although the two leaders of the 9 mystical tower could not find the ruin, they kept a tight watch over the area. When Brother Xie and Brother Sang arrived, they were quickly discovered, and so my 2 brothers decided to teach the 2 leaders a lesson." Qing Hu paused for a moment, then continued, "Fortunately, the 2 leaders of the 9 mystical tower had their own selfish motives. They wanted to take all the benefits from the ruin for themselves, and so they did not inform their own sect. That was why they suffered such a great loss at the hands of Brother Xie and Brother Sang." Lu Ping nodded. He could guess what happened next without needing to be said. Lu Ping thought for a moment, then asked, "Apart from escaping the pursuit of the 9 mystical tower, did you come looking for me in the south for any other reason?" Qing Hu nodded. "That's right, we wanted to ask Master to lend us a hand in exploring the ruin." Even though they already knew that the ruin was near the 9 mystical tower, Qing Hu and the rest still wanted to explore it. Lu Ping was surprised. "This ruin is extremely important to you?" Qing Hu replied, "That's right. Has Master heard of the thieving heaven Laozu?" Chapter 1193. Thieving Heaven Laozu? Lu Ping looked at Qing Hu and the others in surprise. Seeing the 6 nodding, Lu Ping chuckled and opened up a spatial rift, releasing the confused Debao from the Golden House. Debao was thinking about the lab rat left on Huangli Island, and was released by Lu Ping from the Golden House. He still had an infatuated expression on his face, causing Qing Hu and the others to look at each other in confusion, not knowing why Lu Ping released this person. Debao was stunned. Then, he heard Lu Ping laughing and scolding him. "What are you doing? Are you thinking about your little white again?" Debao reflexively wiped his palm across his mouth and loudly said, "Who would have thought of that? Who would have thought of that? I just thought of a way to fish for spirit stones. I'll put it into practice when I get back to Huangli Island, and make a good profit." Saying so, Debao stood at the side with disdain, raising his head higher than his head. But immediately, Debao heard a mocking voice resounding in his ears. "Thieving heaven ancestor." "Who?" Debao quivered and jumped 3 feet high. His small eyes glimmered as he looked at Lu Ping and Qing Hu's group of 6 and asked impatiently, "Who is talking about thieving heaven Laozu?" Lu Ping smiled, and did not say anything. Qing Lang coughed and said, "We found a cave dwelling left behind by thieving heaven Laozu, and obtained some things from it." Before Qing Lang finished speaking, Debao had already jumped in front of Qing Lang. It was unknown how his bloated body could become so agile. He grabbed Qing Lang's arm and said, Go to thieving heaven ancestor's cave. You definitely did not take all the treasures inside. Let treasure grandpa bring you to collect more." Qing Hu heard Lu Ping's words and was overjoyed. "How do you know that there are still treasures inside?" Debao turned around and looked at them contemptuously. "Do you know who thieving heaven Laozu is?" Azure Fox and the other 5 looked at each other. Then Debao continued, "The thieving heaven ancestor is the most glorious figure in the history of our rat clan. He was originally just an ordinary spirit-seeking rat, but in the future, He grew into a mid-Dharma adept and became the famous thieving heaven ancestor in the cultivation world. In the future, our rat clan would become a legendary figure like the thieving heaven ancestor, and we would call ourselves the treasure-seeking rat clan. Every spirit-seeking rat's ultimate goal is to become a treasure-seeking rat. Unfortunately, although we have produced a few geniuses since ancient times, none of them were able to reach the level of the thieving heaven ancestor. The identity of the treasure-seeking rat has always been talked about by our rat clan. But in the end, no one was able to become a treasure-seeking rat. Hearing Debao's explanation, Lu Ping finally understood why Debao kept emphasizing his identity as a treasure-seeking rat after he advanced into the blood condensation realm and refined his hyoid bone. Thieving Heaven Laozu's reputation in the cultivation world was not small, but it was not because he was a powerful great medic. In fact, Thieving Heaven Laozu only became famous after he advanced into the early Dharma stage and the mid-Dharma stage for a few hundred years. After that, he disappeared without a trace. The reason why Thieving Heaven Laozu's reputation was spread to this day was because he could be considered as the #1 thief in the cultivation world. Many of the secret treasures of large and medium-sized sects in the Central Plains had been stolen by him. However, what really made him famous was the rumor that after Thieving Heaven Laozu advanced into the mid-Dharma stage, he successfully sneaked into the inheritance place of a holy land. No one knew what he stole. Thieving Heaven Laozu did not say a word, and the holy land that was robbed did not come forward to refute the rumor. Although there were all kinds of speculations in the cultivation world, and many cultivators related to the Holy Land had asked this question directly. However, some of the high-level cultivators from the Holy Land, who obviously knew the inside story, would often evade the question when they were asked. It was obvious that they were unwilling to talk about this matter. This made some of the cultivators who originally did not believe in the rumor even more convinced that Thieving Heaven Laozu had indeed entered the inheritance place of a holy land. For a time, Thieving Heaven Laozu was called the #1 thief in the world. Thieving Heaven Laozu's identity as a rat demon was not a secret, but he called himself a treasure-seeking rat. The cultivation world had always thought that he was a hidden and rare demon race. After all, although there were many species of rats, they were all low-level races. There was almost no one who had the potential to advance into the blood condensation stage, let alone a rat like Thieving Heaven Laozu, who had pushed his cultivation all the way to the mid-Dharma stage. However, what they did not expect was that Thieving Heaven Laozu himself was actually just a spirit-seeking rat of the lowest level in the cultivation world. And treasure-seeking rat was just an honorific name given to him by the spirit-seeking rat clan, not a race. Debao continued, Thieving Heaven Laozu is known as the #1 thief in the world. He has more than one cave mansion in the cultivation world, and he placed the treasures he collected in these caves. However, it is not so easy to find Thieving Heaven Laozu's things. Even if you find the cave mansion, it is impossible to collect all the things inside. There must be hidden places that have not been discovered yet. What Debao said was not nonsense, because Thieving Heaven Laozu was a figure from nearly 10,000 years ago. However, until now, the cultivation world had publicly discovered more than 10 secret caves of Thieving Heaven Laozu, and each one had more or less a batch of treasures. However, what was truly amazing was that after discovering a Thieving Heaven secret cave, after the treasures inside were collected and taken away, the latecomers would be able to find something that the former couldn't find. Even after several groups of cultivators had discovered the secret caves, the treasures inside were still not completely discovered. It was as if every Thieving Heaven secret cave was a treasure bowl. Even if the treasures inside were not precious, they were endless. The 6 of them naturally knew that the treasures inside the Thieving Heaven secret cave were not completely collected. In fact, after they entered the secret cave, they only collected a few treasures in the periphery. Even so, they were lucky enough to survive the pursuit of 9 Mystical Tower. Azure Fox brought them south to find Lu Tianping. Other than seeking his protection, she also hoped that Lu Ping could lead them to this secret cave. After all, Lu Ping was their nominal master, and his strength and means had reached a height that they admired. Azure Fox exclaimed, "You mean you can collect all the treasures inside the Thieving Heaven secret cave?" Azure Fox knew that although DeBeo was the weakest among Lu Ping's followers, he was Lu Ping's #1 spirit pet, and had an extraordinary relationship with Lu Ping. Moreover, no matter how important Lu Ping's role was, a spirit-seeking mouse that had cultivated to core forging stage should be praised as not easy. Thus, Azure Fox was very respectful towards this seemingly unreliable fatty. DeBeo said arrogantly, "Don't forget, after Thieving Heaven Laozu, I, DeBeo, am the top spirit-seeking mouse among the spirit-seeking mice, and even the entire rat demon clan. I don't have the confidence to find all the treasures in Thieving Heaven Laozu's secret cave, but if I can find more than others, then there will be no problem at all." Azure Fox and the others looked at each other and chose to believe DeBeo's words. After all, Thieving Heaven Laozu was from the spirit-seeking mouse clan. If there was anyone who was most familiar with Thieving Heaven Laozu, it would be his descendant after all. However, the spirit-seeking mouse clan was a low-ranked demon clan. Normally, a blood condensation demon clan was a rare genius. Now that there was a spirit-seeking mouse at core forging stage standing in front of them, who would dare to despise DeBeo's authority in the Thieving Heaven's secret cave? After all, DeBeo could be considered as a rare genius in the rat demon clan that only appeared once in 1,000 or even several thousand years. Seeing DeBeo's smug face, Lu Ping couldn't stand it anymore. He kicked DeBeo's fat butt, coughed, and asked Qing Hu, "How did you find this Thieving Heaven's treasure?" Qing Hu nodded and said, "How did you find this place?" Azure Fox said, "It can be considered a coincidence. I was just taking a stroll in a market, but I didn't expect to find this." As she spoke, Azure Fox took out a small axe that was about the length of a middle finger. The material of this small axe looked like an ordinary high-grade instrument, but there were a few decorative patterns on the surface of the axe. In fact, this small axe was bought by Azure Fox from a late blood condensation adept. Azure Fox had even exchanged a high-grade instrument with the friar for it. Azure Wolf continued, "Although Big Sister's Xian Flower Axe is already a top-grade spirit-nurturing instrument, and there is a possibility that it can be upgraded to a spirit-nurturing instrument, but spiritual materials of this quality are extremely hard to find. Now that Big Sister has just entered the mid-Dharma stage, although spirit-nurturing instruments can still be used, they will still restrict Big Sister's abilities. So we wanted to ask for an axe or some other spiritual treasure for Big Sister, but we didn't expect to find a key to the Thieving Heaven's secret cave." Lu Ping fiddled with the axe in his hand for a moment and said, "This is the high-grade mystic instrument?" "That's him," Azure Wolf said in a rough voice. "Every time Thieving Laozu builds a secret cave, he will use the original form of the most precious treasure in the cave to open the cave. Since this small axe is the key, then the most precious treasure in the cave must be an axe. And with Thieving Laozu's status, this axe must be a spiritual treasure." "Spiritual treasure? An axe?" Lu Ping and DeBeo exclaimed as they suddenly thought of something. Azure Fox knew what they were thinking and nodded. "That's right, it's the spiritual treasure of Thieving Laozu. The Thieving Heaven's godly axe that Laozu has dug up countless treasuries." Chapter 1194. Thieving Divine Axe. DeBeo's eyes almost popped out of his eye sockets. His expression was unreadable, and no one knew what he was thinking. If Thieving Laozu was the most glorious human of the spirit-seeking mice clan, then the Thieving Divine Axe could be said to be the #1 divine weapon that the spirit-seeking mice clan worshipped. This treasure was only at the level of a Class 1 Tribulation Spirit treasure, and it was not famous for killing, but for destroying all kinds of protective formations and opening up all kinds of tunnels. However, it was a spirit treasure after all. In the hands of Thieving Laozu, it could easily break through formations and rock tunnels. In the hands of others, it might become a killing weapon. However, this treasure was also a must-have for DeBeo. The Thieving Divine Axe was almost regarded as the sacred treasure of the spirit-seeking mice clan. Although this treasure was not in the hands of the spirit-seeking mice clan, this did not prevent the spirit-seeking mice clan from regarding the thieving divine axe as their clan's treasure. Seeing Debao's uncertain expression, Qinghu naturally understood the reason immediately. Lu Ping and Debao had been together for a long time, so he naturally knew what Debao was thinking. However, this item was discovered by Qinghu, and with Debao's current cultivation, he naturally could not control a spirit treasure. However, Lu Ping was naturally embarrassed to say these words. In the end, it was Qinghu who smiled and said, "Brother Bao, I naturally know what the thieving divine axe means to you. However, my natal magic treasure cannot survive the thunder tribulation and become a class 1 tribulation spirit treasure for the time being. Therefore, I would like to ask for the thieving divine axe for the time being. In the future, when Qinghu finds suitable top-grade spiritual materials to upgrade the magic treasure, I will definitely return this thieving divine axe." After hearing Qinghu's words, Qinghu's expression became somewhat ugly. He opened his mouth and said, "Why? This is a treasure that we obtained with great difficulty, and we even sacrificed the lives of little 5, little 6, and little 9. Not only Qinghu, but the rest of the 9 bandits, including Qinghu, were also somewhat unhappy. However, when Qinghu suddenly glanced at them, they realized that the real decision in front of them was not this rat demon, but Lu Tianping, who was standing behind her. He was their master, their savior, and also the person that they relied on to enter the thieving heaven treasure again. In fact, when Qinghu and the 9 bandits came to seek protection from Lu Ping, they had already given the thieving heaven treasure to Lu Ping. Everything found inside, and all the distribution rights belonged to Lu Ping as the master. However, at this time, perhaps Lu Ping was not used to the authority of this master, or at least he had to respect the contributions of his subordinates, so he did not say anything. Debao was extremely shrewd, and there was nothing that he did not understand at this point. He immediately smiled and said, "That's not good. After all, the thieving heaven treasure was exchanged with our fellow Taoists' lives. Even if Debao is a money grubber, he will not be so greedy." Speaking of this, Debao pondered for a while and said, "How about this? Fellow Taoist Qinghu's natal magic weapon is a Xianhua giant axe, right? I, Debao, will take care of all the spiritual materials needed to upgrade this Xianhua giant axe to a spiritual treasure in the future. When the Xianhua giant axe is upgraded to a spiritual treasure, how about I exchange it from fellow Taoist Qinghu?" Then, Debao seemed to feel that all the bargaining chips were not enough, so he became generous and said, "How about this? I will help fellow Taoist Qinghu to upgrade your magic weapon, but I will add one more thing. Before I have the ability to control the thieving heaven axe, fellow Taoist Qinghu can use the axe as a spiritual treasure. What do you think?" Before Qinghu agreed, Qinghu first asked, You really can get those supreme-grade spiritual materials to upgrade the Xianhua giant axe? You're not bluffing, are you?" The Qinghu 9 bandits had robbed many houses in the past, but until now, they only had 2 or 3 spiritual materials to upgrade the Xianhua giant axe. How could Qinghu believe that Debao, a rat demon at the core forging stage, had such an ability? However, with the help of Lu Ping, there was still a possibility. At this time, Qinghu, who had always been honest and straightforward, also used narrow-minded words. His words were obviously questioning Debao, but in fact, he was asking for a guarantee from Lu Ping. However, they still underestimated Treasure Lord. Treasure Lord's most valuable things were inseparable from Lu Ping's help, but these things were useless to Lu Ping. Moreover, over the years, Debao had used these things given to him by Lu Ping to exchange for treasures. Even Lu Ping would go through Debao's collection when he needed them. As for how much wealth Debao had, even Lu Ping himself did not know. Moreover, the power to deal with these things was in the hands of Debao. To gather the spiritual materials needed to upgrade the Xianhua giant axe, Debao really didn't need Lu Ping to worry about it. Before Qinghu could finish his words, he saw a lump of golden red stone in Debao's hand. Qinghu's eyes lit up, Qinghu's eyes narrowed, and Qinghu's eyes bulged. He exclaimed, "Meteorite gold red iron, such a big piece?" Debao said proudly, How about it? This treasure is one of the main spiritual materials needed to upgrade your Xianhua giant axe. Of course, you don't need this much. When we have the space, find a refining grandmaster to cut a piece of it for you. I don't have the rest with me, but don't worry. After we settle down, Treasure Lord will think of a way. This piece of meteorite gold red iron was one of the treasures that flew out from the explosion of Hanya Laozu's storage artifact when he was killed by Lu Ping. Because of the characteristics of the meteorite gold red iron, it was not damaged at all. Although Debao only showed one piece, spiritual materials that could be used to upgrade spiritual treasures were extremely rare. If Debao said that he could immediately get all the treasures that could be used to upgrade the Xianhua giant axe, Qinghu and the others would not believe it. Debao understood that the thieving heaven hidden treasure was discovered by Qinghu and the others, but he also knew that no one would give up their natal magic weapon for a spiritual treasure. As long as there was a chance to upgrade a natal magic weapon to a spiritual treasure, the power of a spiritual treasure of the same level would not be comparable to that of a natal magic weapon. Therefore, no matter how famous the thieving heaven divine axe was, if Qinghu had to choose between a natal magic weapon and the thieving heaven divine axe, Debao was sure that Qinghu would choose the natal magic weapon. Sure enough, when Qinghu heard Debao's conditions, she immediately smiled and said, "Then it's a deal." Debao also smiled and said, "It's a deal." At this time, Lu Ping finally laughed. "It's rare to see you, Debao, being so generous for once. You're actually willing to use so many treasures?" There was no dispute between the two sides, and without Lu Ping's participation, the two sides settled their differences. Lu Ping was naturally happy to see this, and did not forget to tease Debao. Lu Ping turned to Qinghu and asked, "Where is the thieving heaven hidden treasure in 9 mystical towers territory?" Qinghu answered, "In the depths of 9 mystical mountain." Lu Ping was taken aback, and he smiled bitterly. "It's so close to 9 mystical tower. No wonder it was discovered by them." Qinghu also smiled bitterly. "That's right. But the last time we ventured into 9 mystical mountains thieving heaven hidden treasure, we obtained a piece of information from it. This time, the main reason why we ventured into 9 mystical towers territory again is because of this piece of information." Lu Ping was taken aback. "Oh, what is it?" "Thieving heaven pill." Qinghu said word by word, then asked Lu Ping. "Master is not only one of the top 3rd-generation cultivators, but also a famous alchemy grandmaster. I wonder if you've heard of a miraculous pill like the thieving heaven pill." The 9 Profound Mountain was located in a mountain range to the southwest of the 9 Profound Tower. The mountain range wasn't very tall, but it was extremely steep. The 9 Profound Tower didn't get its name from the 9 Profound Mountain. On the contrary, it was called the 9 Profound Mountain because it was very close to the 9 Profound Tower. Lu Ping led Qinghu and the rest in a circle, sneaking into 9 mystical towers territory and arriving at the outskirts of 9 mystical mountain. Once they were close to 9 mystical mountain, Lu Ping used the art of sea deception and constantly changed his appearance to observe the situation in 9 mystical mountain. After returning to their base, Lu Ping sighed helplessly. "The situation is a little more complicated than we thought. 9 Mystical Tower has already put the entire 9 Mystical Tower under surveillance. If we enter again, even if we can avoid the 9 Mystical Tower's spies, once we open the treasure trove, the commotion will definitely alert the 9 Mystical Tower's cultivators again. They will quickly find the entrance to the treasure trove and set up an ambush outside. It won't be like last time. When the 9 mystical towers people were alerted, they arrived too late and could no longer find the entrance." Qinghu frowned. 9 mystical tower seems to be very concerned about the thieving heaven treasure trove. Lu Ping nodded. "The more concerned they are, the more precious the treasures in the treasure trove will be." Debao did not care about that. There were only treasures in his eyes. "What treasures are you talking about?" Lu Ping thought about it. The thieving heaven divine axe can be considered the treasure that made Laozu famous, the tool he relied on to make a living, but now he has lost it here. And this place is so close to 9 mystical tower. Qinghu immediately gasped. You're saying that this place is very likely the location of Laozu's most important treasure trove? Back then, it was rumored that thieving heaven Laozu had once snuck into a sacred land to steal. Could it be that the sacred land that was stolen was Nine Mystical Tower? And this is the stronghold that thieving heaven Laozu set up to infiltrate Nine Mystical Tower? And the reason why Nine Mystical Tower has mobilized so many people is because the treasures that were stolen from Nine Mystical Tower are also in the treasure trove? Lu Ping nodded. Most importantly, after news of thieving heaven Laozu infiltrating a sacred land spread in the cultivation world, thieving heaven Laozu has not appeared in the cultivation world since. Chapter 1195. Hearing Lu Ping's analysis, Qing Lang had a flash of doubt in his mind, but his attention was soon attracted by the possible treasures in the thieving heaven's hidden treasure. You are saying that thieving heaven Laozu was already heavily injured when he escaped from the sacred land, and this hidden treasure became thieving heaven Laozu's final burial ground? No wonder you said that this hidden treasure is very likely to be the most important hidden treasure left behind by thieving heaven Laozu. When everyone heard this, they immediately let out low exclamations. Among them, the Bao even jumped up and down. He seemed to be extremely excited, and his movements weren't affected by his fat figure at all. At this time, Qinghu asked with a smile, Master seems to be quite interested in thieving heaven Laozu. You actually know so much about thieving heaven Laozu. This was the question that flashed in Qing Lang's mind previously. After all, thieving heaven Laozu was a person from 10,000 years ago, and even now, legends about him had spread like wildfire. But it was still suspicious for someone like Lu Ping to know so many details about him. Even though Qinghu had her doubts, she could only be doubts in front of Lu Ping. Lu Ping only smiled and did not answer, so Qinghu naturally would not pursue the matter. Lu Ping knew about these things because of the fragments of memories left in Fei Tian Laozu's pure young soul. This was considered as Lu Ping's biggest secret. He naturally would not reveal these things. And Fei Tian Laozu knew about these things not only because his era was closer to thieving heaven Laozu, but also because his location allowed him to obtain more secrets of the cultivation world. More importantly, Ying Tian sect had once obtained a hidden treasure of thieving heaven, from which they learned some things about thieving heaven Laozu, which were passed down from generation to generation, and were eventually obtained by Lu Ping. Lu Ping smiled. Qinghu, let's talk about the thieving heaven pill. Although you entered the thieving heaven treasure trove in a hurry, how did you find traces of the thieving heaven pill? Qinghu said regretfully. We only found a jade bottle with the thieving heaven pill's name on it, but there were only some dregs left inside. Thieving heaven pill was also a heaven-defying pill created by thieving heaven Laozu in the past. Thieving heaven Laozu's original intention of refining this pill was to improve the low-rank bloodline of spirit-seeking mice. In other words, to improve the innate aptitude of spirit-seeking mice. In fact, there was no alchemist in the cultivation world who didn't have this idea. Besides, it wasn't that there weren't similar methods to improve one's aptitude. It was just that all of these methods required rare treasures, just like the fruit that Lu Ping's direct disciple, Du Jelua, ate when he was young. They were all treasures that could only be found by luck. Thieving heaven Laozu was probably like this. When he was still a mouse demon at the blood-refining stage, he was fortunate enough to eat a spirit fruit of heaven and earth during a foraging process, which cleansed his body and improved his aptitude, causing his cultivation to soar. Later on, thieving heaven Laozu focused on alchemy and had a fortuitous encounter, which pushed his cultivation all the way to the Dharma manifestation stage. And thieving heaven Laozu's ambition was not ordinary. He wanted to improve the innate aptitude of spirit-seeking mice. How many spirit-seeking mice were there in the cultivation world? Perhaps even Kai Tian 7th Patriarch did not know the answer to this question. However, to improve the aptitude of a race, perhaps only Kai Tian 7th Patriarch could do it. At the very least, thieving heaven ancestor could not take out those rare heavenly treasures for each of the mice to improve their aptitude. Otherwise, those so-called heavenly treasures would not be called heavenly treasures. But Thieving Heaven Laozu really had this belief, and struggled in the cultivation world for hundreds of years. For this reason, he constantly improved those methods that could improve aptitude, hoping to replace those rare treasures with spirit herbs that were as common as possible or not too precious. However, this process was extremely difficult, and the amount of spirit herbs needed was enormous. Even if Thieving Heaven Laozu reduced the rarity of the spirit herbs used, it was only using lesser treasures to replace more precious treasures, using rarer 5,000 years old spirit herbs to replace 5,000 years old spirit herbs, using 3,000 years old spirit herbs to replace 5,000 years old spirit herbs. And in the process of replacement, because of the sufficient amount of medicinal ingredients, the number of spirit herbs needed was often even greater. But the pills refined might not be able to completely reach the effect of improving innate aptitude. But soon a problem arose. Although Thieving Heaven Laozu was trying his best to reduce the grade of spirit herbs needed for these heaven-defying pills, while rare treasures were rare, they were not so easy to obtain. 3,000 to 5,000 years old spirit herbs were not dog's tail grass. Furthermore, in order to not reduce the medicinal effect, the amount of these things needed was extremely large. Thieving Heaven Laozu soon fell into a predicament. He could not obtain enough spirit herbs to complete his dream. In desperation, Thieving Heaven Laozu could only take a risk, that was to steal. As a result, all the large and small sects in Central Plains that specialized in cultivating spirit herbs were targeted by Thieving Heaven Laozu. Thieving Heaven Laozu's reputation soared. But he also became the rat of the cultivation world. Everyone wanted to beat him up. However, Thieving Heaven Laozu was indeed worthy of being the most outstanding spirit-seeking rat in the last 10,000 years. Many of the defensive formations in the cultivation world's spirit herb gardens were all broken by him. Many famous great cultivators were alarmed by him. But they could not catch an ordinary Dharma incarnation rat demon. Finally, he targeted the 5 sacred lands. In terms of cultivating spirit herbs, which sect in the cultivation world could compare to the treasures of the sacred lands? There were rumors in the cultivation world that Thieving Heaven Laozu succeeded in the sacred lands, but then he disappeared, and there was no news of this person in the cultivation world. But now it seemed that Thieving Heaven Laozu might have escaped from the 9 mystical tower and stole the spirit herbs. But he obviously suffered a big loss and probably couldn't have survived. In the cultivation world, there were still some spirit pills refined by Thieving Heaven Laozu. These spirit pills were collectively known as Thieving Heaven pills. Most of them were accidentally discovered by cultivators in the thousands of years after. There were very few of them, but each of them could be regarded as the best among the spirit pills. Additionally, most of these spirit pills were related to improving a cultivator's aptitude. Even if they couldn't completely improve a cultivator's aptitude, taking a pill would allow a cultivator to rapidly increase their cultivation base, or greatly enhance a certain aspect of their body. These spirit pills were not only the dream of every cultivator, but also the obsession of every alchemist. Thieving Heaven Divine Axe, Thieving Heaven Pill. Just these 2 items alone were enough for Lu Ping to take the risk and make the trip. Tonight, only Yumi and Debeo will go. The others will stay outside to provide support. Lu Ping said to Qing Hu. For cultivators like Lu Ping and Qing Hu, day or night was nothing to them. The reason why Lu Ping chose to sneak into the 9 mystical mountain at night was mainly to cover for Debeo. No one knew how many treasures Thieving Heaven Laozu had left in the cultivation world. But some people inadvertently discovered that if they brought along a spirit-seeking mouse when exploring Thieving Heaven Laozu's treasures, they could easily enter the treasures and find more treasures. At this time, the cultivators realized that Thieving Heaven Ancestor spent so much effort to leave behind the hidden treasures. It might be because he wanted to pass his inheritance to his descendants, or because of his background. The spirit-seeking rat could easily find the treasures he was hiding. In other words, Thieving Heaven Ancestor's painstaking efforts were all in vain. His descendants were still one of the most lowly races among the monster race. The treasures he left behind for his descendants were all found by his own descendants, under the control of others. In the middle of the night, Qing Hu flew towards the 9 mystical mountain, while suppressing her speed. Even though she tried her best to hide her aura, she was still discovered by the cultivators of 9 mystical tower. On an empty peak of the 9 mystical mountain, 9 palace tower Lord Zhu Jilwan gritted his teeth and shouted, "It's her, this bitch, the boss of the Qing Hu 9 bandits." "Shut up." A sturdy man in his 30s did not care about what kind of powerful background Zhu Jilwan had. He opened his mouth and shouted coldly, causing Zhu Jilwan to obediently shut her mouth. However, Zhu Jilwan's expression was obviously extremely indignant, but the person in front of her made her extremely fearful, so she did not dare to act rashly. There were obviously other cultivators of the 9 mystical tower on the peak, but they all tactfully shut their mouths at this time. Only one person was lying on a boulder, muttering about a stalk of grass that he had plucked from somewhere. He crossed his arms in front of his chest and mumbled, "Enough, second brother. I know you're waiting for Lu Tianping to appear, but I advise you to call boss way over. You're not much stronger than me. It's not that I'm looking down on you, but I'm afraid you're not Lu Tianping's match." This person was naturally the third of the 9 mystical tower's direct disciples, Chang Laosan of the 3 Talents Pavilion, who had once fought with Lu Ping. The second brother he spoke of was obviously the 2 Rights Tower Lord, who was ranked second. They had obviously gathered here because they had expected Lu Ping to bring Qing Hu back to search for the thieving heaven's hidden treasure. Qing Hu's appearance at this time was just a trick to lure the tiger away from the mountain. Not good. Qing Hu seems to have sensed something. She suddenly turned around and ran out of the 9 mystical mountain. Could it be that Lu Tianping didn't come to the 9 mystical mountain with Qing Hu? Why didn't his brothers come with him? Aren't they usually inseparable? Could it be that they have an ambush outside? An ambush? What a joke. Ambushing the 9 mystical towers cultivators in the 9 mystical towers territory? Ha! Are you going to lend them your guts? I'll lend them. Chang Laosan scram. 9th brother, 8th brother, 7th brother. The 3 of you go chase after Qing Hu. Remember, if Lu Tianping comes to their rescue, the 3 of you just need to keep them busy. If you want to wash away the humiliation from before, today is your chance. The 2 Rights Tower Lord roared. The rest of you stay where you are, just in case this is a trick to lure the tiger away from the mountain. Chapter 1196. The Yin and Yang Tower Master's guess was indeed correct. Not long after the Green Fox retreated, a cultivator who was standing with the Yin and Yang Tower Master and the 3 Talents Tower Master suddenly grunted and said, "Second brother guessed correctly. Someone really did sneak in and activated the warning formation in the mountain." Third brother Chang looked at this person in surprise and sighed. Fifth brother's attainments and formations are becoming more and more astonishing. Second brother and I did not discover that someone sneaked in, but in the end, that person still could not escape from Lu Ping's formation detection. Fifth brother Chang shook his head and said, "That person's method of concealing his tracks is extremely brilliant. If it wasn't for the slight vibration of the ground when he walked and activating the formation, even I would not have known that this person had already sneaked in." The Yin and Yang Tower Master, who had been silent all this while, said, "This person must be Lu Tianping. Only this person could avoid our divine sense and sneak into Jishuan Mountain." The 5 Elements Tower Master said, "Should we surround him now?" The Yin and Yang Tower Master shook his head and said, "The 3 of us working together is enough to deal with him. It's just that this person's strength can defeat a great cultivator. Even if the 3 of us work together and defeat him, we won't be able to make him stay. Right now, we only need to follow his tracks. This time, the main goal is to figure out the location of the 5 elements hidden treasure. If we want to deal with Lu Tianping, we will have to wait until he comes out of the hidden treasure." Third brother Chang was startled and said, "This time, we are going to kill Lu Tianping?" The Yin and Yang Tower Master said, "For the thieving heaven hidden treasure, we can't care so much. You all know that when thieving heaven Laozu came out of Spirit Luan blessed land, he was heavily injured. After that, there was no news of him in the cultivation world. Our sect's seniors have long suspected that thieving heaven Laozu left behind a hidden treasure near Jushuan Tower. Thieving heaven Laozu most likely died there. It is a pity that in the last 10,000 years, many of our sect's ancestors Laozu had explored the area around our sect more than once, and this 9 profound mountain was an important area, but they could not find the inheritance left behind by thieving heaven Laozu. Who would have thought that a few thieves would find it and sneak in? Thinking about the number of treasures found in the thieving heaven hidden treasure, thieving heaven Laozu must have made some arrangements before his death. These thieves only obtained some superficial things. This time, the place where thieving heaven Laozu died will definitely have more treasures. This is also the reason why we are sure that they sneaked back again. The Yin and Yang Tower Master paused here and said, with Lu Tianping's ability, as long as he enters the thieving heaven hidden treasure, his harvest will definitely surpass the Green Fox 9 bandits. But in order to find the entrance of the thieving heaven hidden treasure, we have no choice but to let him in. So we can only wait for him to come out and kill him. At that time, Boss Wei will also rush over, and Fifth Brother will also be able to set up a formation at the entrance. At that time, Jushuan Tower's direct lineage, Yuan Tower, Yin and Yang Tower, 3 Talents Tower, and 5 Elements Tower will work together, and with the help of the formation, if we still can't take care of Lu Tianping, then we really can't be direct lineage cultivators. It will be embarrassing. However, as soon as the Yin and Yang Tower Master finished speaking, 5 Elements Tower Master's expression became increasingly strange. Chang Sankai, who was at the side, quickly noticed 5 Elements Tower Master's expression and quickly asked, Fifth Brother, what's wrong? 5 Elements Tower Master glanced at the two of them and said, he's coming towards us. The Yin and Yang Tower Master was shocked. He stared at 5 Elements Tower Master and said, how did he find out? Fifth Brother, didn't you say that this formation to hide our tracks was comprehended in the Nether Space Loss formation? And even our sect's great cultivators can't find it? 5 Elements Tower Master was obviously also stunned, but Chang Sankai, who was at the side, said, maybe he didn't find us. The Yin and Yang Tower Master and 5 Elements Tower Master were stunned. Then Chang Sankai continued, why can't the entrance of the thieving heaven hidden treasure be on the hill where we are? After sneaking into 9 Profound Mountain, Lu Ping traveled quickly, but he didn't use any flying techniques. He insisted on walking on the ground. He passed through several valleys and valleys. Then he took a detour and headed towards the hill where the people of 9 Profound Mountain were at. Lu Ping was not proficient in formations, but he had a Dao companion who was proficient in formations. After being trapped in the Nether Space Loss formation for more than 20 years, he also obtained the 9 Debao Restrictions Formation Foundation from the Nether Space Loss formation. So Lu Ping's understanding of formations was not shallow. Right now, he even had the large success stage 3 Pure True Pupils ability. After refining the Lone Eagle's bloodline, the power of the 3 Pure True Pupils had become even stronger. Not long after entering the 9 Profound Mountain, he had already discovered the set of concealment formation set up on the hill. The formation that the 5 Elements Tower Master said was comprehended from the Nether Space Loss formation was a joke in Lu Ping's eyes. This concealment formation was simply an imitation of one of the formations in the 8th layer of the Nether Space Loss formation, and it was not a complete imitation. There were only some slight changes at the corners, making it look like it was the same, but it was actually not. Of course, the person who set up the formation was able to enter the 8th layer of the Nether Space Loss formation. At least it meant that this person's attainment in formations was above Deng Ming's, and he was an experienced formation master. If it was on a normal day, Lu Ping would naturally be cautious when he saw this person. However, since this formation was copied so well, Lu Ping, who already knew the answer, naturally would not be so polite. He went straight to the top of the hill, ready to meet the heirs of the 9 Profound Tower. On the top of the hill, Chang Sansai's words were greatly approved by the 2 Elements Tower Masters and the 5 Elements Tower Masters, especially the 5 Elements Tower Master, who was even more certain that Lu Ping definitely did not discover the formation at the top of the hill, and that the thieving heaven treasure was on this hill. The 2 Elements Tower Master nodded and said, "In that case, second brother, open the formation and let him move freely. We will retreat first, and when he finds the entrance to the treasure, we will come back and surround him." The 5 Elements Tower Master executed a few techniques, and under the astonished gaze of Lu Ping, the entire formation still existed, but it had lost the ability to obstruct people from entering the top of the hill. It only had the effect of concealing one's tracks. If not for Lu Ping's 3 pure true pupils, he might not even know that there was a formation at the top of the hill. Lu Ping's divine sense moved, and he saw 3 extremely weak auras retreating from the other side of the hill. If not for Lu Ping's extraordinary divine sense, he might only see these 3 auras as wild beasts that roamed the mountains at night. The 9 profound towers' actions made Lu Ping a little confused, but he immediately thought of something, and his lips curled into a smile. He really walked around the top of the hill, and then, as if he had tripped, he staggered and kicked a stone under his feet into a depression on the stone wall. Just as the stone smashed into the depression, the whole stone wall suddenly flashed with a spiritual light, and then the stone fell from the stone wall and disappeared again. The 5 Elements Tower Master, who was watching from afar, suddenly exclaimed, "Oh no, he has discovered us." Immediately after, he saw Lu Ping, who was at the top of the hill, look at the stone wall in shock. Then, as if he had realized something, there was a flash of light under his feet, and he quickly flew out of the Ninexian mountain. Chang Sankai was puzzled. How could things be so coincidental? How could a Dharma adept like Lu Ping trip and accidentally kick a stone? Furthermore, the stone had hit one of the nodes of the formation, causing the originally invisible formation to suddenly reveal itself. How could so many coincidences happen at the same time? At this moment, the anxious voice of the 5 Elements Tower Master rang out. Should we chase after him or not? If they did not chase after him, now that their tracks had been exposed, Lu Tianping would definitely not come after them. If they chased after him, not only would they not be able to catch up, even if they did, could the 3 of them work together to stop Lu Tianping? At least Chang Sankai, who had seen Lu Ping's strength, did not think that they would be able to do so. As they spoke, Lu Ping's light had already disappeared into the sky, and the 3 of them could no longer track Lu Ping. How could he be so fast? The 2 Elements Tower Master sighed and said, "There is no need to chase after him. At least we have confirmed that the thieving heaven's inheritance is on this mountain. Even if we spend some effort, we will be able to find it." Outside the Ninexian mountain, Zhu Jiuwan, the 7 Stars Tower Master, and the 8 Trigrams Tower Master stopped Green Fox. Zhu Jiuwan said fiercely, "Bitch, let's see where you can run this time." Green Fox looked at the 3 people surrounding her and said with a smile, "I did not say that I will run." Zhu Jiuwan was startled. Then he saw a bright light under Green Fox's feet. Zhu Jiuwan immediately shouted, "Quickly, destroy the teleportation formation under her feet." However, the light disappeared in a flash, and there was no trace of Green Fox. Zhu Jiuwan and the other 2 rushed to where Green Fox was standing, and saw that the teleportation runes on the simple teleportation formation that was covered by a thin layer of soil were gradually dissipating, leaving only the teleportation talisman at the center of the teleportation formation that was torn to quickly activate the formation. Teleportation arrays could be used for teleportation purposes, but the activation speed was slow. Teleportation arrays could be activated quickly, but the destination of teleportation was not precise enough. However, at this moment, the 2 were perfectly combined. This was a directional teleportation array. Where did Green Fox go? Somewhere in the Ninexian mountain that Lu Ping had passed, Debao, who had shrunk his body as much as possible, but was still as fat as a meatball, crawled out from the ground. The reason why Lu Ping had chosen to sneak into the Ninexian mountain was to cover for Debao, who was using the earth evasion technique along the way. In the middle of the mountain, Debeo transformed back into his human form and chuckled. He tossed an item in his hand into the air. That item was none other than the secret key that Green Fox had used to enter the Thieving Heaven's inheritance, a small and exquisite axe-shaped magic tool. Debeo walked half a circle around the mountain and found the boulder that Green Fox had mentioned. He saw Lu Ping take out the axe-shaped magic tool, and it immediately transformed into a majestic giant axe, then fiercely chopped at the boulder. Dang! The boulder was split in two, and the entire Ninexian mountain sounded as if a huge gong had been smashed. Debeo put away the magic tool in his hand and jumped into the two halves of the boulder. He disappeared into it, and the two halves of the boulder instantly merged back together, becoming whole again. Chapter 1197. The shock from Debeo's strike was not small, but the sudden loud noise caught the 9 mystical towers cultivators off guard. The master of the Yin and Yang building and the others suddenly realized that they had fallen into another trap. Not only Qing Hu, but Lu Tianping was also just bait, luring them to focus all their attention on them. Unexpectedly, a third person had sneaked into Mount Jiushuan. However, the crux of the matter was how this third person had snuck in. Why hadn't the 9 mystical towers measures detected his presence? Not far away, Zhu Jiuwan and the others had also rushed over to meet up with the master of the Yin and Yang building and the others. They had returned after being shaken off by Qing Hu. What should we do? Everyone looked at the master of the Yin and Yang building. At this moment, the master of the Yin and Yang building's expression was frighteningly gloomy. Previously, he had thought that everything was under his control, but now he suddenly realized that he had been tricked by Lu Tianping. The heirs did not say anything. Only Zhu Jiuwan had a gloating expression on her face. Let's search. What else can we do now? Circle up all the suspicious places in Mount Jiushuan and surround them as soon as possible when they come out. Chang Sankai saw that the master of the Yin and Yang building was not in his right mind, so he said this. Chang Sansai's words brought the master of the Yin and Yang building back to his senses. He continued, "No one is allowed to act alone. Once you discover anything strange, you must immediately entangle the intruder. The others will then go and provide support." Zhu Jiuwan casually looked at her hands and said, Mount Jushuan is so big. How can we search all the way here with just the few of us? I don't think there's any need to keep up appearances. Let's go back to the sect and ask for help. Call a few of the second-generation cultivators and surround Mount Jushuan so tightly that not even a drop of water can trickle through. I don't believe that he can fly into the sky. What a joke. Is one Lu Tianping worth alarming the entire 9 mystical tower? A voice suddenly sounded in everyone's ears, and almost everyone's spirit was shaken. Even Chang Sankai, who had always been sloppy, pulled out the grass stalk in his mouth, and Zhu Jiuluan's sarcastic young mistemper also disappeared. Boss Wei, you're finally here. A pale-faced, young-looking cultivator suddenly appeared in front of the other cultivators of the 9 Profound Tower like a ghost. The important people of the 9 Profound Tower seemed to be familiar with the characteristics of this cultivator, so they didn't seem too surprised. Instead, they were extremely respectful. Even Zhu Jiuluan put away all the emotions on her face. This pale young man was the number 1 direct disciple of the 9 Profound House, Hall Lord Yuan. Because his surname was Wei, he was addressed as Boss Wei. Of course, cultivators from other sects called him Wei Yuan. Since Lu Tianping has created a diversion and sent someone else into the thieving heaven treasure trove after drawing all of you away, once that person comes out, Qing Hu and Lu Tianping will definitely be waiting outside the 9 mysterious mountain to receive them. This is our chance, our only chance. Wei Yuan looked at everyone calmly. However, no one, including the master of the Two Rights building, dared to look him in the eye. Seeing that no one objected, Wei Yuan nodded slightly and said, "In that case, it's decided." After Debao jumped into the boulder, he felt his body sink first, then something tightened under his feet. With a dong sound, Debao felt his vision brighten. When he opened his eyes, he found himself in a man-made tunnel that was as tall as a person. Debao looked around and said, "It really is our spirit-seeking mouse. No, it is the work of the treasure-seeking mouse clan. The thieving heaven ancestor is really powerful." With that, Debao's fat palm pressed against the stone wall. An earthen yellow vital energy entered the stone wall, and a formation restriction rune appeared on the stone wall. This formation restriction was obviously for the outside, and not the inside. Therefore, even a person like Debao, who did not have much knowledge about formations, could easily find 1 or 2 nodes on the formation. At the instant the node lit up, a crystalline stone the size of a finger appeared in Debao's hand. He then pressed the small stone into one of the nodes that had lit up. Then, under Debao's astonished gaze, these lit-up runes were like tadpoles that had come to life and began to slowly move on the stone wall. For some reason, the movement of these spirit runes did not affect the operation of the formation restriction. When these runes moved and formed a new formation, Debao immediately said with joy, "It's done. This space underworld essence is really extraordinary. It can actually form a simple teleportation formation so easily." As soon as he said that, the newly formed teleportation formation shone brightly. In the blink of an eye, the light faded, and Lu Ping had already arrived at the tunnel. This simple teleportation formation was formed by using the space underworld essence to reorganize the formation runes in the thieving heaven inheritance. But it was a simple teleportation formation after all, and could only teleport 1 person at a time. The teleportation formation flickered continuously. Samling, Green Phoenix, Tiger, Black Tortoise, Lu Taohua, and even Purple Crystal Bee King entered the thieving heaven inheritance. "How is it? Is this place the same as the last time you entered?" Everyone looked at Lu Ping's followers in surprise. Lu Ping asked Green Fox and the rest while plucking the space underworld essence from the stone wall. Even though Green Fox and the rest were curious about the stone in Lu Ping's hand, they still looked around. Green Fox said with joy, "That's right, this is the place. I did not expect to return so easily." Lu Ping nodded and said, "The entrance should have been mostly searched by you. Let's go to the furthest point and start from there." As soon as Lu Ping said that, Debao called out from the side, "Don't, wait a minute." Lu Ping looked at Debao and asked, "What is it?" Debao smiled. "Why is it said that the treasures in the thieving heaven inheritance need to be searched tens to hundreds of times before finding something that has never been discovered before? Because no one can search all of the treasures hidden by thieving Heaven Laozu in one go. Even though Green Fox and the rest have searched this tunnel, there are still many things left behind. Green Tiger was a bit unhappy and said, "Hey, then why don't you find some for us to see?" Dabao let out a mischievous laugh. His large fat body unhurriedly spun around twice. A wave of earthen yellow smoke rose. After the smoke scattered, Dabao had already returned to his original form. A wild boar-sized rat appeared in front of everyone. The giant rat took 2 steps forward. It was exactly where Qing Hu had been standing. The giant rat bustled about, and in the blink of an eye, a 2-foot-deep pit was created. Everyone then saw a palm-sized copper box lying at the bottom of the pit. Qing Hu snorted and didn't say anything else. The giant rat at the bottom of the pit had already thrown the copper box into Lu Ping's hand. Lu Ping opened the copper box in front of everyone and smiled. "Good luck, a piece of lapis lazuli, a dual-attribute earth low-grade spirit item." Then he threw the copper box back to Dabao. Dabao's neck flashed and the copper box disappeared. Obviously, there was a storage artifact hanging on Dabao's neck. Dabao climbed out of the pit and started to backfill it. Green Tiger said, "It's just a pit, we need to hurry up. Why are you backfilling it?" Dabao said seriously, "This was left behind by Ancestor Thieving Heaven. It might even be the resting place of Ancestor Thieving Heaven after he died. Let's take the treasures inside and not disturb his rest." Green Tiger curled his lips, obviously disapproving, but in his opinion, there was no need to argue with a dead person. They walked along the tunnel for hundreds of feet. Along the way, they could clearly see many traces left by the Cyan Fox 9 bandits when they came in last time. Dabao tried his best to erase these traces and restore the original appearance of the secret treasure. At this moment, Big Bao, who had been leading the way, suddenly turned around to look at the wall beside him. Then, he let out a cry of surprise. When he arrived in front of the stone wall, a hammer and chisel had appeared in his hands. Then he began to knock on the stone wall with clanging sounds. Green Tiger did not understand and said, "Isn't this just a stone wall? Other than being dug, everything else is naturally formed. Could it be that Thieving Heaven Laozu has the ability to hide things through the stone wall?" Everyone looked at Dabao. Even Lu Ping did not know what was behind this stone wall. This treasure was protected by a formation. His divine sense could not detect anything, and his eyes obviously could not see through the stone wall. At this moment, with a crisp sound of Dabao knocking on the stone wall, a cloud of spiritual energy suddenly spurted out from the hole in the stone wall, and in the crystal light, a spirit stone appeared in front of everyone. "Isn't it just a top-grade spirit stone? Don't make a fuss about it. But this rat demon's nose is really good. He can even find the spirit stone behind a stone wall more than a foot thick." Green Tiger did not know why he was a bit talkative at this time. "Humph." A slightly childish voice rang out. Qing Hu glared at the source of the voice, only to see Lu Xiaohai say coldly, "Don't forget that most of the rat demon clan inherited the bloodline of Taoist Hu, which is the same origin as you. The bloodline of the spirit-seeking rat is thin, and can only be regarded as a low-level demon clan. But its bloodline has never changed." Green Tiger glared at him and said angrily, "Boy, who gave you the right to speak?" Lu Xiaohai looked at Green Tiger with contempt and said, "You only have a quarter of the multicolored tiger bloodline. How dare you be arrogant in front of me?" You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.